winking at you.
I just,
She's not paying attention.
I know she isn't. I got a couple minutes.
I don't think I can make it in there back in time.
What?
You're on, by the way.
I know.
Hey, Paige.
No, wait. He did the Popeye. I did the Popeye. Chris did the same thing. Oh, goodness. You only do it once and they all get paranoid over it. Just wait till it wears off. Oh, yeah, you don't do it all at once. Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's why I'm like, I feel good now.
I found him.
On.
That's
Mine's on.
Did I had him? You're live.
Is Kurt not coming? Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Vice Mayor Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Mollison.
Here.
Councilmember Campion. Councilmember Lamson. Mayor Hewer.
Here. Please join me in honoring tonight's meeting. I'd like to open it in honor of a council member that we lost in 2002 to breast cancer. This is October. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'd like to honor all of the survivors and those who lost their life. And Tony Gora was a three-time council member, and while he was serving, he lost his life to breast cancer. And I think lots of people still aren't aware that men also develop breast cancer. So if you'll join me in a silent prayer followed by the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Replay statement.
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Friday, October 5th at 9 a.m. and Saturday, October 6th at 9 a.m. The City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website, and a DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Agenda approval, additions and/or deletions? Seeing none, move on to presentations. Beautification Annual Report to City Council. Barbara Payne.
It is my pleasure to present the 2017-2018 Annual Report of the Beautification Committee. The report outlines the committee's activities throughout the fiscal year. The committee wishes to thank the Community Development Department, Public Works Department, and Parks and Recs. Without their help, the committee could not have completed their activities of the year. We were also fortunate to have the support of community members and businesses such as Cal Waste. Okay. It has been a tradition for many years for the Beautification Committee to decorate the Christmas tree in the lobby. This past year, City Clerk provided us with the most beautiful ornaments to decorate the tree, and we look forward to it again this year. Oh, we also, the Beautification Committee, with the help of Councilwoman Lapson, purchased lights for all the trees on Lincoln Way, and hopefully we will enhance it every year, make it better and better. This year, the Beautification Committee really is trying to develop a program to create an awareness of pride in the community by keeping litter picked up to enhance the look of our community. And we started that by donning our vests and going out with our picker-uppers and inviting the community to join us to pick up the litter. And it's been so rewarding so far, and we've been doing it almost every month and plan to continue. One of the things that we took over from the previous Beautification Committee were the planters on C Street. They had a wonderful idea. They put the planters in front of the businesses and plant flowers, and the businesses would water them. Well, that didn't quite happen. They didn't get watered, and some of the businesses went away. So with the help of Public Works, we relocated all those planters on C Street, and believe me, it was an ordeal. We had Stephanie Trafton Brown we walked the streets together in a positive way, and look for the right locations so that we wouldn't be impairing any visual for anyone, a pedestrian or for cars. It took us, I don't know, a few months to complete that. They have been relocated, and we planted something trying to keep in line with the palm trees on 4th Street. The idea was the corridor going down C Street to Old Town Galt would sort of have a theme. And I have to say, my Beautification Committee goes out every week and waters them because there is no water to any of our planters. So appreciation to them, too. We've expanded our recognition of the Home of the Month to include the businesses of the month. The ones that have exceptional landscaping or their storefront really makes a good presentation for our community. We go and recognize them, and we put this sign that says, "Thank you for keeping our city clean and beautiful." This was the first one we did at the mobile station at Lincoln Way and C Street. And if you go by there now, they have lovely rose bushes planted there. Really, really proud of him. And he was proud to get the recognition as well. This is one of our community cleanup days that we were especially proud of because our police officers came out and helped. And as you can see, we have a lot of children, which is a wonderful benefit. The moms and dads come out with their children and show them, not just tell them about keeping the streets clean, but they're working with them. And then when the police officers come out too, what an impression that makes on our youth. Thank you for the police officers. We continue our program of recognizing the Home of the Month, trying to encourage people to look at their neighborhood and keep it looking good. If one house looks bad in the neighborhood, it affects all of them, and it affects their property values. We also like to try to especially notice the ones that are trying to deal with the water shortage. And this is one where, yeah, they still have some lawn, but they also took a large area and they used rocks and other ways to landscape. One of the things that we have been so concerned about is Highway 99 between Galt and Elk Road, the trash and the litter that you can see on Highway 99. And we thought, how did we ever get to that point where it's just so easy just to throw your trash out the cars? So the Youth Commission had a Project Earth project at the Littleton. So we made a big banner that says, "Make California Golden Again." And it has poppies on it, and we put trash all over it, and the kids came with their trash picker-uppers and took the trash off of the map of California to make it look golden again. You can tell this is our committee, and if you're on the beautification committee, would you please stand up? This is our committee, and you can tell by that picture, we are very serious and earnest about what we're doing. So we look forward to the coming year. We are just starting to do our plan of Carilion Boulevard. We have some areas that need some color and some plants, as well as Lake Canyon Park. We're going to plant flowers in front of the sign. So that's our next big project, but we will continue everything else we have going. So this is a mighty group that you see up there. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, the Beautification Committee. Thanks for all coming out tonight. Presentation 2, Pavement Conditions and Funding Report, Public Works.
Your clicker. Barbara, did you take our clicker? I don't watch these next. Madam Mayor and council members, this is something that we've tried to make an annual tradition, is to kind of give you a report card on our roadways. And this year we have sort of a special feature in that we've just recently completed a brand new citywide survey of all of our streets to update our pavement condition index. And Mr. Drung-Tran, our senior engineer in Public Works, is going to make a presentation on that. Go ahead and step to the podium, Trung, just to make you a little more nervous.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Madam Mayor, member of the council, making a brief presentation on the city's pavement management program. So what is pavement management program? It's a program we use to keep our database of our roadways. The city has 178 lane miles of road at an asset value of $75 million. We use what's called a pavement condition index. For the rating system, it's a scale from 0 to 100, 0 being a completely failed road and 100 being a brand new road. This rating system is used by most other agencies in the Sacramento area, so when we do a comparison from city to city, it's apples to apples comparison. Why is pavement management needed? It's a decision-making process to optimize available funding, guides planning and maintenance for rehabilitation project, and essentially the program, it spits out project lists for us, and we use engineering judgment to narrow down the project for mobilization, for economic reasons, and we create a project starting with the program. The program also helps us inventory and manage our roadway assets, so as new roads are coming in on subdivisions, we add the roads, keep track of them. In the rare case that we do remove roads, we can remove the roads from the city's roadways. And finally, the pavement management is required for all federal and state funding. This is typically what you see with the pavement life cycle for a typical road section. The y-axis is the pavement condition index, is what we talked about, from 0 to 100. And the x-axis is essentially the lifespan of the pavement. And what this graph essentially shows is that what we need to do in the 75% useful life of the pavement, In this area, we want to install the preventive maintenance treatment on a pavement. And in that way, we get the most bang for the buck. It's cheaper to take care of a pavement at this point with a slurry seal or microsurfacing rather than to let it go to a 40 or a 30 and install an overlay or reconstruct. It's a lot more money at that point. In the following slide, you'll see, but we are currently at an average of about 77, so we're actually right at the point where the slope starts dropping dramatically. These are some examples of what the typical PCI and the numbers look like. This is Joy. It's an 89. It's a very good road. I think it was redone a couple of years ago with an overlay. It's very tight. There's asphalt binder. It's water can shed off it, go to the drainage. So it's a very good road. On average, at Beaver Parkway and Bay Heights is typically what Galt looks like. And this is a 77, so this would be a perfect condition for us to apply those treatments, those preventative treatments. And then worst is, one of the worst roads in Galt is B Street between 4th and 7th. And this road has all sorts of pavement distresses, and water has penetrated, and it's, the pavement's actually spalling, so it's a zero. How do we compare to other agencies? Pretty good. We're right there at the very top. There's a couple of reasons why our pavement's actually looking pretty decent, and it's because of we did the report about 2011, and at that time we were still around 76, 77, and we did a couple of pavement overlays. Since then, we've done a couple of subdivisions have come in, provided new roads, and I think the last thing that really helped us was the completion of the Safe Routes to School project. That was a $5.2 million project that injected a lot of money into our pavement. There was microsurfacing, there was a lot of pavement dig out and overlay work, so that helped our average quite a bit. So we just ran a 5-year budget scenario just for you to see. If we were not to do anything, our PCI would drop from a 77 to a 69. There's a total budget of $1.68 million annually, and if we use the whole amount for roadways, it would drop 3 points to 74, and Steve will go more into this. To maintain the current PCI at 77, we require a $2.8 million project, and if we wanted to move up to an 80, that would require a $4.5 million project. So the outlook, the first bullet I kind of talked about with what has helped our PCI, new development, recent projects, grant projects, but it should be noted that the PCI will gradually decrease with the current pavement budget that we have. Staff will continue to look for grants and apply for grants to help our budget funding, and we'll continue to look for creative ways and economic ways to maximize the benefit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
So I just wanted to sort of close the presentation out with a discussion of our current funding and funding outlook. This graph kind of gives you the pie, if all in that we're spending on our roads. Historically, we've spent about we receive about $590,000 annually in the last couple of years on average from traditional historic fuel taxes, diesel tax, gas tax, and other state highway type funding that is allocated on a formula to cities and counties, and Galt's share is about $590,000 a year. In 2017, SB 1 passed, and that's sort of the orange piece of the pie. It almost, increased to almost double what the historic fuel taxes were, and that's the current year's budget for that we're in now is about, we estimate about $430,000, and that number will actually grow to equal or surpass the historic if it remains in place, because it's got escalators and is still ramping up to its authorized level by 2022, I believe it'll be up to full funding. So we've got a little bit of ways to go there. And then the workhorse, then the savior for Galt's roads over the past decade and a half has been Measure A, Sacramento Transportation Authority's half-cent sales tax that was recently renewed for another 20-year period. And as you can see, that's doing a large share of the heavy lifting. The $590,000 in historic fuel taxes essentially does very little to help our pavement condition index. That is basically filling potholes, striping our roadways, replacing stop signs that get knocked down, and keeping the reflective value of our legends and signs throughout town. Basically, we sort of the keeping the lights on for the roadway system. It doesn't actually go towards improving the roadway conditions. It just tries to keep them safe and passable to the extent we can. We're actually supplementing that with Measure A funding to basically do the routine maintenance and signs and striping that need to be done in the city. So SB1 funding became sort of the first structural fix in over 25 years in California to actually add money to the pot for local agencies as well as the state highway system. And, it actually represents about 25-26% of our discretionary funding, which are the orange and blue pots that we can actually apply to pavement enhancements. We've been using a lot of Measure A for the last few years to match the federal and state grants that we've been receiving from SACOG, Caltrans, and Federal Highway Administration. There's always a local match when you apply for those grants. Going forward, we're going to either try to find additional grant funds that will help us improve roadway conditions and can help leverage that local share out of Measure A. But we're going to probably be doing more preventive maintenance programs will be recommended in the future, would be my recommendation. Unfortunately, they're not quite as glamorous and glitzy as doing a $5 million Safe Routes to School project, but we really have got to start investing in our roadways. And that doesn't always, a slurry seal project isn't always a great ribbon cutting ceremony, but it's really vital. Before I kind of close out with sort of the challenges that we face funding going forward, I want to back up to this graph. And as Trung noted, we're kind of right here, and we sort of call this next stretch the cliff, and Galt is slipping down toward the edge of the cliff. At 77, we've used up about 40% of our roadway, life expectancy value. In the next 3.5 years, without adequate funding, we are going to fall off that cliff and lose another 12% of our useful value. And the price point between where we are here, where we can do preventive maintenance, and when we get down here on the graph in about 3.5 years without sufficient funding, will probably quadruple the investment required then to bring it back up. So really, time is not our friend on the pavement curve here, and typically we estimate about a 20-year life with proper preventive maintenance. And we're doing better than many of our sister cities and counties around us. But again, we've been getting some sort of artificial help from subdivisions and some one-time grants. And to really have a sustainable roadway program, we need to have a sustainable funding outlook so that we can program effective maintenance. Even with the infusion of SB1 funding, which was a major increase in available annual funding, roadway maintenance costs as we approach where we are on that curve are increasing faster than even with that infusion of new cash we're going to be able to keep up with. So we're going to continue to need to look for creative funding sources. Other than inflation and the roadway deterioration curve, there is a Proposition 6 on the November ballot that Council I know is aware of, but for the public, that proposes to eliminate the SB1 funding that was adopted in 2017. And that is certainly the voters' prerogative, but I'd like to think that our roads are nonpartisan issues that require a sustained investment to provide for public safety, health, and welfare, and certainly the economic development of Galt. And with that, we would open it up to any questions about the pavement condition report or about funding.
Tom, go ahead.
If I'm reading this right, we need 2.8 million annually to maintain basically what we have. Rating is 77.
That's
Right.
correct.
That's correct, okay. We have currently are forecasting the available funding of 1.68 million annually,
With SB1 included, yes.
which, including SB1. So that means we have a $1.12 million question mark, the way I read it.
That's correct.
Yep. And we don't have any answers for that yet, do we?
Well, I
Yeah.
enjoy conversations with the city manager. I tell him that I spend money, he prints money, but, you know, it's a common problem throughout California. And like I say, SB1 was the first structural fix to sort of a broken gas tax formula in over 25 years. And so it's concerning to me as a professional, you know, that people, some people don't see the value in that program. But even at that is not enough. But we are always looking to invest wisely the monies we do have and try to maximize that impact. We've been fortunate to bring in some large grants. We've been briefing council members on some SACOG grants that are currently in the hopper, but even if they come through, we're 3 years away from seeing that funding. And so the challenge remains, and we do not have a staff answer to how do we make up that difference. So the likely outlook, absent some new unforeseen funding source, is that we'll slowly start to
Go off the cliff.
down.
Yep. Okay.
Mark?
Well, I was going to ask a question because I'm looking at your numbers here, and you're saying to Maine, the PCI at 77 requires 2.8 million, but then further down, you were telling us it's going to quadruple. So in reality, that's not going to be enough money, correct?
Yeah, once you drop below, every point you drop down, the cost to get back up is more expensive.
So we can hope we get those grants.
Or we go off the cliff.
We go off the cliff.
Paige, you have any comments, questions? Well, at the League of Women, at the California League of Cities, I attended a presentation regarding Proposition 6, and it's $52 billion that the state of California will lose if Proposition 6 passes. And roads really are, in my opinion, the infrastructure, they really are about our lives. Accidents, all we have to do is drive out here on 99 these days to know what an awful mess it is. And loss of those SB1 funds, it was passed by 75% of the legislature, passed SB1, which is very rare in our political climate, to have 75% of our legislatures agree of a need. It was 10 years in the works to get it. So I just think that infrastructure, and particularly roadways, we either pay to have good roads, or we pay with our lives. I mean, I think that many accidents that are caused and things that happen have to do with roadways that aren't maintained. So we will, but we'll keep working on it. So that B Street, any plans to do something about that?
Well, if SB1 funds continue, we have, you previously, earlier this year, endorsed our program for next year's funds, and we're targeting the older town areas. I don't know that that particular street is on the radar or not. I've got a graphic that we handed out or showed you earlier in the year, but we are trying. Older areas of town are where the real challenge is, because they're farther down the curve and aren't seeing the new subdivisions. That's why we focused Safe Routes to School on the schools in that area, and we'll be looking to program a majority of those funds over the next couple of fiscal years in older areas of town west of 99.
I think it's important.
If I may add one thing, safety is certainly the fundamental factor, but studies have also shown that what we're paying for in tires and rims and wheels and front-end alignments and damage due to potholes and roadway conditions far exceeds the typical increment that an average annual household would pay in the extra fuel taxes. So we think it's a great return on investment.
The Caltrans, I-5 to the airport just had a good example of that. Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? Okay. Public comment?
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the City Council on non-agenda items. The public comment section is for the City Council to receive comments. Except for brief responses to questions, no discussion or action may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Speaker cards are located on the table inside the entrances to council chambers. Once completed, forward the speaker card to the clerk. Those persons wishing to speak on an item scheduled on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so at the time that item is being considered.
So the speaker cards I have are only for items on the agenda. Do we have anyone that wants to speak regarding an item not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on. Reports by city council members on regional boards, commissions, and committees. One of the subjects is League of California Cities Annual Conference, Long Beach, California, and myself and Councilmember Lamson attended. So we'll start with you, Councilmember Lamson.
Turn my mic back on. So there was a plethora of events and classes to attend. I only saw you at one that I attended because there's so many choices, had to be like 30 or 40. So I attended the Sacramento Valley Division Lunch, and I saw Lori at that one also, and that was just the Sacramento Valley people meeting and getting together and seeing some faces and things we can work together. I attended a Tie Into Tears, a Guide to Public Engagement workshop. And basically, it's a whole program that helps government engage the public better. It will help with better identifying the public's values, ideas, and recommendations that can lead to improved local agency decision-making with better impacts and better outcomes. It was very interesting, some of the techniques they use. They use intentional activities such as surveys, in-person and/or online engagement, focus groups, tabling community events, and social media. And it actually lets the public know what they will do and accomplish at a meeting, so the meeting doesn't kind of go off on a different tangent. And I thought that's something we could use in some of our public meetings. There was a general session on voting trends, just how with the registration at the DMV, a lot of people aren't registering their political party like they thought they were, so by the hundreds of thousands, so that was interesting. I attended a Rural Cities Challenge and Opportunities forum. So basically, a lot of the things up in Sacramento happen with the big cities in mind, and sometimes the rural cities are left out. So they're going to form a rural working group that serves to improve the quality of life on behalf of rural cities and develop an effective voice in the development of policies that affect our smaller communities throughout the state. And I volunteered to work on that committee if they want me to. 10 to 1, there's so many. Future legislation and police culture. According to AB 931, California is a stand your ground state where you can hold your own. And they want to redefine reasonable force because it's kind of mushy definition, and it's hard to hold officers accountable to that. So they're thinking necessary force is easier to define, which in a nutshell means officers wouldn't use deadly force until they felt they need to, which I'm sure most of our officers don't anyway, but until that's written down and put in law. Also something that they came up with is we really need to get our police officers into the lower schools to educate the children on how to behave when they come across officers. And that's logical to most of us, but working in the high school, I can see where a lot of kids don't know how to respond or how to talk to officers when they're out and about. And maybe if we started working with the kids at a younger age, that would be something we can work on. Attended one on unconscious bias, where everyone has a little bit of unconscious bias, and we just need to be mindful of it. Recent studies have shown that women and men, if they have the same resume, a man is still looked at as more favorable on that resume. So they've started doing some auditions and symphony auditions behind a curtain. And it used to be they would hire more men for the symphony. When they started doing that, they were hiring an equal number of men and women. So that was kind of interesting. There's lots more. I have a little catalog for Armando on Christmas decorations. And they had an expo, which I met the people that gave us our green, it's not paint, our green composite, told them thank you. I bought one of these cool little gadgets to keep in my car for safety, so that was kind of fun. So they have lots of things there, everything you could think of, lights, street lights, all trying to get us in there, so brought a few catalogs back, but if you want to pass that to Armando. And I think that's about it.
Well, that's interesting that we didn't attend any of the, it sounds like none of the same stuff.
One thing.
Didn't attend those. So I did attend the mayor and council member department meeting. It was about community choice aggregation. It was about alternative to investor-owned energy supply systems. And I guess San Joaquin County is considering entering into a community choice aggregation outside of using the utility, the investor-owned utility like PG&E. So it's kind of a spreading thing in California. So the Sac City Division luncheon, just so we can congratulate her, the president of the league now is the mayor of Grass Valley, has been elected as the new president of the League of Cities. So she is looking for anyone who wants to be involved, any council members that want to be involved. She's looking for recruits. The opening session I thought was, they had a great speaker. And so just a question for all of you. It's kind of interesting to think about what is your personal leadership philosophy and why do you matter? If you ask a 5-year-old why they matter, they can all tell you immediately. If they're under 5, they'll tell you why they're important. As adults, we often quit doing that, realizing it. So I attended a seminar on public engagement, and I actually going to share the handouts with the email the handouts to the city manager. It's called the tier system, and it's think, initiate, engage, review, and shift. And they talk about it being a way to engage the community differently than the traditional ways. They also talked a lot about at that same one about offering materials in if you have a large population that speaks that primary language like we do, of a Latino population, of putting like our newsletters and things like that into translating them into Spanish. And they talked about holding a civic leadership academy, which is something that we've been working on that we're going to do. Okay, and then I did attend the discussion about Proposition 6, the fact that it eliminates $52 billion from state transportation funds. I attended a seminar on CEQA guidelines and did share that with the city manager, the new CEQA guidelines that are coming to our town. They are changing CEQA, especially regarding transportation. Okay, and how we judge it. I did attend the cannabis legislation in California 9 months out, just to hear what was happening. And then a bargaining perspective for a union and management. And I was really pleased that when they were going over how bargaining should be handled and the council's job and the city staff's job versus the union versus, how bargaining should proceed, I was really pleased, Cora, because most of those things we're following. So for me, it was kind of like, we do that. So in the changing face of economic development, and the fact is that now instead of, they used to always tell us that you needed to bring in businesses or bring in economic development and people would follow. Now the philosophy is much more so that you need the rooftops and economic development kind of follows the rooftops. And that isn't how the old model looked at economic development. So kind of the change that economic development really is changing in across the nation, but that we really need to look at economic development differently, that it's not just a matter of, we can go out and recruit businesses and recruit all of these things. You have to there really is everybody competes with each other anymore. And so you need to look at it more as a regional, which I think we're doing with Greater Sac, and looking at economic development more as a regional model and what we can do as a region regarding economic development. So I think we're, in Sacramento region, way ahead of what they're doing in some other areas where they're all competing with each other. I also attended the Farm to Fork dinner and Library Authority. Library Authority was focused a lot on budget and the JPA. So I'm going to meet with the attorney to go over the JPA because I think we need to have a better understanding of it. It was done quite a while ago, and they're talking about some changes. Okay. Tom?
Well, I can't match all that, but I did attend the Galt Chamber Luncheon where we had a presentation on CERT, the Timmy Strong event
That's true.
out at Liberty Ranch, Safety Committee, National Night Out. Oh, by the way, the Timmy Strong event, I could not get TJ in the dunk booth, the dunk tank. I tried.
And you tried to get me in there.
Yeah, I tried to get Paige in there too.
Said after him.
Nobody tried to get me in.
Next time, have Angela teach you how to throw the ball.
Okay. Safety Committee, the Police Department put on a National Night Out Appreciation Barbecue for the volunteers for National Night Out. Thank you very much. I think TJ kind of handled that too, if I remember right. And then we attended a potential SACOG grant meeting a couple days ago, and these are grants that are 2 and 3 years out, just so we have a feel of what's out there. You start now, so in 2 or 3 years, maybe we'll get something. And that's it.
Mark?
Bear with me here. We'll start from this weekend. This weekend I attended 2 events that were side by side with each other. One was called Cops, Cars, and Coffee, which was a great event in the downtown area. And when you got tired of that, or if you wanted to explore a little further, Station 45, our local fire station, had an open house. It was a great event for the downtown area for 4th Street. In the line of the grant meetings you were talking about, the actual meetings for those grants will be coming up in November. Granted, the funding won't come around for the next 2 to 3 years. I also attended the same meetings, and we're hoping that we get what we're asking for. Always keep our fingers crossed on that one. During one of my SACOG board meetings, something that is near and dear to my heart, and it's finally been approved to move forward, and Ms. Payne, you'll love this one. It falls in line with our youth group. SACOG is playing catch-up with us. For the longest time, we've had our youth involved in government and getting their feet wet. Well, SACOG's doing the same thing now on the regional level, and they actually used our program as one of the templates to do so. So the applications are actually available online through the SACOG website for all of our youth. They're looking at juniors and seniors, and they were very picky about who specifically, what type of high schools would be chosen to do it. The plus side, all of the high schools in the city of Galt met their requirements. So if you could pass that on to the youngsters. Also coming up on the 17th of October, since we won't have a chance to address it, here in these chambers, we will have what's called an unmet transit meeting. It'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I would really advise people to come in, sit down, and talk to the people who are going to be here from SACOG. I will be here running the meeting, but the big thing is you're talking to the people who go back and say, hey, we need this bus route, or we need this particular item. It works. One of the big things that came out of that from last year was an item called Connect Card, and I don't know how many people use the buses and transit system within the region and also within Galt. But that Connect Card replaces the tickets you had to go down and buy. You can go online, you can renew the card, put more money on it, you're off and running. And it works on RTU trains, RTU buses, our local buses. So it's really a worthwhile thing to do, to go and voice your opinion. It may be a great idea that you have, and nobody's going to hear it unless you sit there and tell them. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Okay, reports for League of, I'm going to go back to, we have a public speaker sheet that just came in.
Did it fall again?
So, Ms. Mulson?
I think after 7 years on the school board, I'm a little nervous. So, Councilmember Lamson, your group that you went to about the police engaging with the younger youth really piqued my interest because I'm also on the City and Schools Together Committee, CAST, and due to the superintendent issues with the high school, we have not met in a very long time. So I'm just throwing it out there and suggesting that we somehow get a meeting together. I don't know on my end or on the city's end who schedule those meetings, but I really feel that engaging the law enforcement with the younger youth, especially at the schools. I've spoken with TJ, and I know they're trying to get their presence out there, but we were speaking, actually it was just last week, because my daughter, goes to River Oak School, and she was telling TJ, you guys should come to our school. But okay, so they go to one school, but there's not enough officers to go to all the schools. So I think that we should schedule a CAST meeting now that we have the superintendent issue at the high school squared away within the near future, and definitely put this on the agenda and get this program somehow up and running.
Okay, I'll put a bug in the super's ear.
You should. All right, and that's all
And
I
you've
have
got the
to say.
bug in
Yeah,
everybody
Mayor,
else's.
I have a quarterly meeting with the superintendents, and it's coming up within a week, so I'll bring that up.
Okay.
Our next meeting, and
Yeah, because
There we go.
the kids, they love the presence of law enforcement at their campuses. I know that, and I do think that engaging that, police officers aren't bad and they're not going to arrest you and tackle you to the ground, and getting that positive aspect out in our community with our youth.
Right.
I mean, they love seeing all the officers at National Night Out and all the different events, Timmy Strong, but just really engaging more in each of our individual elementary schools.
Yeah, and telling them what to do if they get pulled over,
Don't run.
right? You'd be surprised. Thank you.
Thank you.
They just want to see copper.
This is true.
Actually,
That's
we do
true.
have the Grandma Cops program that I think that the CAPS volunteers do, that is an amazing program for the small children. And
I think
gosh, all you have to do is go to an event and watch the kids run up to the CAPS volunteers, the Grandma Cops. And so, yeah.
I know they need to
Always.
see the actual officers too. I know it's hard to get him over there with so much running around.
Okay. Information consent calendar, minutes of the regular meeting of September 18th, 2018. Receive and file warrants for period ending September 20th, 2018. Amending Galt Municipal Code, Chapter 2.90, Beautification Committee, Chapter 2.95, Public Safety Committee, and Chapter 2.97, Commission on Aging regarding disclosure requirements. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Cruz, second by Councilmember Lamson. Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Molson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Hewer?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0 vote. Scheduled matters, regular calendar. Human Resource Department, approval of recommended change to compensation for position of Utilities Maintenance Supervisor. Cora?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Cora Hall, HR Director for the city. I'm here tonight to talk about the position of Utilities Maintenance Supervisor and how it relates to the compensation and classification study that the city underwent back in 2016, and to also provide staff recommendation on how to address the salary for this position. So to recap on the history of the compensation and classification study, in 2016, the city contracted with Coffin Associates to conduct a comprehensive classification and compensation study in which a base and total compensation study was conducted to determine the city of Galt's position within the labor market. The first step in implementing this compensation study was to reclassify and retitle recommended job positions. Next, the city identified its position within the labor market for the positions that were surveyed, and the salaries were bargained through the negotiation process. The last piece of the compensation study is to review the city's internal equity structure for fairness and consistency, and to appropriately place within the structure the positions that either were not surveyed or did not have enough comparator agencies, and then were also not addressed within the negotiation process. I feel like I'm getting an echo. So the position of the utilities maintenance supervisor did not yield enough comparators to be surveyed. So within the negotiation process, the Galt Public Service Unit and unrepresented employees, their salaries were brought to 5% within the total compensation median within the compensation study. The City Council approved this new memorandum of understanding on May 15th of this year. Subordinate staff to the utilities maintenance supervisor position, which was the positions of the plant maintenance mechanic and the senior plant maintenance mechanic, received a 19% increase as a result of the compensation study and through the negotiations process. This salary was increased, the salary increase was effective January 1st of this year. The position of utilities manager, which is the position of the utilities maintenance supervisor, this is the position that it reports to, received a 22.3% increase, also effective back in January 1st of 2018. In efforts to maintain an equitable salary structure within the job family and to avoid salary compensation between subordinate and supervisory staff, it is recommended the proposed change be approved, which is consistent with the increases received by the GPSU and the unrepresented employees. So it included with the staff report and resolution is revised mid-management salary schedule, which reflects a 20% increase for the position of utilities maintenance supervisor. Staff is recommending that this salary increase be retroactive to January 1st of 2018 to be consistent with the salary increases received by the GPSU and unrepresented employees. That is the end. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Cora, on this chart we're looking at, is that total comp or just salary?
It's total comp.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Cora, in the report, my understanding is that when we did the compensation study and we brought all of the employees up to within 5% of medium of those agencies that were negotiated with.
Correct.
With the bargaining units to what agencies salaries would be compared at.
Yes.
We brought them all within 5% or at 5% in regards to the police officers were actually brought to medium.
Medium, correct.
Everybody else was brought within 5% of medium. This position didn't have enough, this position wasn't represented in enough of the cities to have a good.
Correct. There was only one comparator agency, which was the city of Manteca. So out of the 12 comparator agencies, there was only one, so it was not surveyed.
And my understanding of the reason that is that many cities are not running their own wastewater treatment plants, correct? I mean, we have positions that you wouldn't find across the board in cities because a lot of treatment plants are ran by independent agencies.
Yes, please.
Isn't that true, Steve?
Generally, yes. Also, there are regional agencies, such as almost all of the greater Sacramento area are served by Sacramento Regional Sanitation District.
Such as Elk Grove, right? So, I mean,
Elk Grove, City
you
of
wouldn't find Elk
Sacramento,
Grove
Central
having these
Heights,
positions.
Folsom, they're all
Rancho.
served by that regional plant, and so they don't have these positions. And while Lodi does, our configuration of our plant is different. So there really weren't a lot, and they may have smaller staff based on their plant size. So finding an actual position match, they might have a sewer treatment plant. They don't have a similar position for maintenance.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to understand why there weren't comparable agencies in the salary of this position.
Correct.
So now we have a person we have a position that's supervising other positions that are all making close to the same amount.
Correct. So, which causes the compaction issue.
It causes the compaction issue.
Now, the salary schedule in the packet here. That's the current one that you're asking us to approve, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the grade classifications are what you're asking us for? In other words, the grade 55 classification, that's the one that's going to be changed?
Yes, correct.
All right. So let's follow me where I'm going with this. I'm looking at grade 57 and grade 53. In other words, one above, one below, and this one's right in the middle of those two. Okay, makes sense. Okay. Where do those grades come from?
So I have Matt Boring here. He's our financial analyst he's in control of the internal equity structure. So he would be able to answer that more appropriately.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Good evening. So we created the salary matrix. So we took the lowest required salary and randomly assigned that, I believe, to grade 20. And there's a 2.5% increase between each pay grade. So between 20 and 21 is a 2.5% grade. And you don't see all of the grades on the schedule because not all of them are in use.
In use, correct. Okay. So how did you arrive at this position at grade 55?
So we wanted to assign a 20% increase. So I believe they were at 47 before. So that's a 8-grade increase to 55.
And Cora, wasn't part of that based upon the study that was done regarding positions and responsibilities and compensation? I mean, part of how it came to that had to do with the compensation study when they looked at employees' responsibilities and employees,
Correct.
the employees and directors completed regarding, I mean, it was all part of that compensation study.
Yes, it's accurate.
Yep.
Because it looked at all of the positions and the responsibilities that were in.
So you see where I'm coming from, is I want to make sure that we got the position in the right grade and how we got there. And it's between, the higher and lower grades, so it all fits. Okay, all right. Thank you.
And I think the other thing that we need to remember is that one of the things the compensation study showed was that at our treatment plant, we weren't being competitive and it's one of the reasons why we were having difficulty hiring and retaining
Or training,
employees for the
and- yeah.
treatment plant was because we weren't competitive with those large regional, we often talk about positions that we lose employees to, and one of those, we do lose employees from the treatment plant, and we lose them to the large Sacramento regional, to these large agencies that are covering, huge regions, and so they're very big operations, and they
Right.
offer greater compensation than we do at our smaller plant.
Right, that's definitely something that this study brought to light.
Yes, it did.
'Cause
I mean, they
did
were
see
some of the
significant
most that were the
increases.
furthest out, had to do with those positions that were at our treatment plant.
And they were the furthest out, those positions that were surveyed. So this, the plant maintenance mechanic and then the utilities manager.
So when we brought the positions within back, why was this position left out? Or why hadn't we, because it was is it because after the contracts were settled that it became the impaction issue?
Yes. So these positions that were not surveyed or dealt with the negotiations, you kind of, at the very end of the compensation study, which we're finally here after 2 years, you take a look at all that information and you evaluate those positions and you take a look at every position within our current salary structure to make sure that they fit appropriately. So, and this was kind of the last piece. There were about 15 positions that we took a look at the end, and there's 2 positions that we are recommending tonight for approval.
Any further questions for Cora? Do I have a motion? I'll make a motion to approve the recommended change to compensation for position of utilities maintenance supervisor.
And I'll second.
Do you want to get public comment at all on that?
Pardon?
Yeah, I was going to say, any public comment?
Do I have any public comment? I don't have any sleeps. No, I don't have any slips. This is,
Right.
do I have any public comment? No, I have a, no? Okay. So I have a motion by Mayor Hewer, second by Councilmember Mulson. Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz.
Aye.
Councilmember Molson.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson.
Aye.
Mayor Hewer.
Aye, motion passes 4-0 vote. Thank you, Cora, and now we're on to item 2, and I do have a public comment regarding item 2, so following your presentation, we'll
Okay.
take public comment. Approval of recommended change to compensation for positions of police chief.
So this position also has to do with the cough study. So originally, so within the negotiations process, the Galt Public Service Unit and unrepresented personnel salaries were brought to the 5% total compensation, 5% of the total compensation of the study. The City Council approved this memorandum of understanding on May 15, 2018. The position of police chief received a 5% increase effective January 1st as a result of this contract. Within the negotiations process for the Galt Police Officers Association, this group was brought to the total compensation median within the study, and the City Council approved this memorandum of understanding on September 4th of this year. So included in the staff report and resolution is a revised management salary schedule, which reflects a 2.8% salary increase for the position of police chief. Staff is recommending the salary increase to be consistent with the salary increases received by the GPOA through the negotiations process.
Any questions for Cora? Okay, I'll take public comment.
Actually, I do have.
You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, one quick.
You wanted, okay.
I'm looking at this management salary schedule. And again, I'm looking at the grade, going back to the grades. The position we're talking about is police chief 106, and I'm looking at grades 105 and 107. Now, if we include the 5%, that includes the 5% in that, right? To bring that position up to median.
So it'd be 2.8%. That includes the 2.8% to be brought to
Right.
the total compensation median.
Right, so, yes, that would include that.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
okay,
does.
okay, all right. Yeah, because that one, actually, the salary steps are a little higher than the 107 grade, but that's due to compaction,
So the
or
management,
lack of compaction.
the management pay grades, there's typically only one employee per position, so those aren't the 2.5% per grade that's
Right.
determined by position, so that one's,
Right.
that schedule's slightly different.
Correct.
So the issue is because we had given this position, we had raised the salary of this position previously.
Yes.
But then when we finished negotiations with GPOA and we brought the officers within medium, so we brought them to medium.
Right.
And we had only brought this position to within 5%. of
5%,
median.
yeah.
So now we need to bring it back to bring
Correct.
this
Right.
position into medium. This doesn't have anything to do with the person holding the position or anything else.
Absolutely
It has
not.
to do with just bringing our
Right.
positions in line
Correct.
salary-wise.
And then I just wanted to note that the lieutenant position was looked at as well, but that position was already above the total compensation median. So that's why this position is being recommended.
Okay,
So Cory, it'll be right at the median, exactly not
Yes.
5% below.
Yes.
Okay. When we first had the salary survey, I pulled all the management schedules, and I noticed that of the 12 cities surveyed, our police chief position was the only one that made less than the finance director in 12
That's
cities.
accurate. Yeah.
So I'm glad we're finally getting around to getting this where it should be.
okay. Thank you, Cora.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark, Police Chief, raise, item H2.
Thank you. Citizens of Galt and members of council, good evening. I stand before you tonight to share my thoughts on the prospective salary increase for the police chief. I come as a member of the public, an observer, an outsider to the department, and I'm certain that those working directly under the police chief are in a better position to tell you what kind of boss he is. However, my perspective is equally important. Let me preface my thoughts by admitting my very conservative approach to city spending. I believe salary increases in general should be earned, not doled out with any determination of merit. However, as my grandmother used to say, money is like manure. Sometimes you've got to spread it around a bit to make things grow. I find that to be an appropriate expression in this case, as providing fair compensation for the chief of police is the best way to ensure the continued growth of the healthy relationship between the Galt Police Department and the citizens. Aside from the city manager, no position in city government has the ability to impact the lives of the people as much as the chief of police. A good police chief can do wonders for a city, while a bad police chief can cost a city dearly. I'm rather cautious when it comes to evaluating people in places of power. I don't like to rush to judgment, and I don't give credit unduly. But from where I sit, our current police chief has made significant improvements in developing and maintaining the relationship between the police and the people of Galt. He has taken a keen interest in our little town and its people and has made a concerted effort to participate in community activities both in and out of uniform. I have been impressed by the commitment he has made to engage the community and to foster relationships with the children, adults, and nonprofit organizations in Galt. This boots-on-the-ground approach has been cleverly bolstered and supported by the use of modern technology and social media. I strongly believe the transformation I have observed in the police department and in the city over the course of his tenure is largely attributable to our police chief. The raise under consideration is, in my opinion, rather modest. In order to retain quality people, you have to pay them competitively. The loss of effective leaders can result in a loss of momentum, an extinguishing of guiding spirit and principle, as well as the potential for taking an organization backwards. In my mind, increasing wages for law enforcement personnel is never a bad idea, but always a good investment. In conclusion, I would like to express my full support for the increase in compensation for the position of Chief of Police. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Cruz, second by Councilmember
Take your pick.
Molson. Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Molson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Hewer?
Aye, motion passes 4-0 vote. Public Works Department, Public Safety Committee request for development of a stop sign policy.
Madam Mayor and council members,
I have a number of speaker sheets that I will take after the presentation.
okay, this item is a result of prior direction by council to bring this back, and this and the following item that we'll take up were originated in the Public Safety Committee. And so Mr. Mark Clarkson will make a brief presentation on our recommendations relative to a stop sign policy.
Mayor, City Council, now we come to the interesting part of the agenda, the daily life of an engineer. Can't get this thing working here.
Oh, come on, you're an engineer.
So, we have the safety committee, and we convene about every 2 months, and we talk about different things that are going on, whether it's schools or homeless or things that are going out in the streets. And so we had an item that came up two meetings ago that talked about, or asked about our policy, if we have an actual policy on stop sign requests. So by given that, given direction by the City Council, I went and looked at what other jurisdictions are doing. We do not have an adopted policy for the city, but we do have an in-depth process that we kind of follow. When we evaluate any factor, we don't get a lot of stop sign requests. Some of them are repetitive, so we call that one request because we may have already done a review on it. But we get a lot of others. We get trees blocking signs, we get lights out, we get, hard to see stuff, speeding, we get comments like that. And it can come over social media, the City Council website, it can come straight to Public Works, or I can overhear it in a lunchroom somewhere. And I make notes, and then I contact the city engineer, and I say, hey, we got to go out there and look at that. Because sometimes it's more than just what they're asking for. It could be something simple to be corrected. So we have this big process that we do internally, and some of it I do, some of it other engineers do among us. And so we, when we look at evaluating factors, the MUTCD, I mean, that's the big book right there. 1,400 plus pages last time I read it. I haven't read it, okay, all of it. But last time I had to look at it. Yeah. And in there, it talks about different things that you want to do for stop signs. We'll talk about stop signs here and warrants, where you want to put control systems, where you want to put signs, with relation to, schools and peak hours, pedestrian volume, so many things that are involved in this, and I'm not going to go and read all that stuff, but that's kind of a guidebook for us. So what do? As soon as we receive something, as soon as I hear something, I'm generally the one who goes out there and looks at the site and just kind of get a feel for it. Then I might do after it's reviewed, I might, ask some of my staff to collect more data. I might do a few other things in there. Just depends on what's asked. It just depends if I could see something to correct right away, how much detail we're going to go into it. If we think it's a potential that it can meet some kind of a warrant or some kind of safety issue, then we're going to collect more data. We don't think there's going to be as much or much needed in there. Then we collect less data. We do an evaluation. We go back and we either do some of the work, whether we're cutting trees for sight distance, or we're doing, planting signs, if we're going to go put signs out there. Once we're done with that, then we go back and contact the person who requested the information. We let them know what's going on and kind of our process and what we've done. To give you a real example, Walnut and Elk Hills has been a discussion point for a long time. It does not meet warrants. It's been looked at many times before I got here. It looked at after I got here several times. But what we did do, on the first time it came to me, we went out there. I got my chainsaw started up. Chris, close your ears. And we cut a few trees back because they were in the line of sight. We trimmed a bunch of bushes down. We trimmed some branches up. We lopped some limbs off. And it gave better visibility. Did it reduce? Did it reduce? His people mostly did it. But it primarily gave a little bit more viewpoint, or it did improve the line of sight. It didn't reduce traffic. But again, we improved that area the best we can without being able to do anything else at that point. And so we routinely get calls in on that. We discuss it with the person who's contacting us. And we still, if I haven't had a contact on that for about a month and a half, but if somebody comes out, contacts us about Walnut and Elk Hills, I will make a drive out there, make sure all the signs are in place, make sure all the lights are working, make sure the stop signs, everything is there, the paint is fine, and then I will contact the person. So that's just a pretty customary thing that we do. Gets me out of the office.
So it sounds to me, even though you don't have an official policy, you do have a procedure that you follow.
Yes, and being the official in that position as city engineer, I can't take it lightly. I have to go out there. If somebody says it could be a safety issue, somebody requests something, we have to get on it and move on it. So we do have an internal direction that we do, and internal. We also discuss it. Engineering meets once a week, and if any issues come up out there, we talk about these intersections or whatever comes up, and we make a line of attack. So it's right on the forefront of
Whether it's a referral from a citizen, whether it's a referral from the police, whether
anything.
Referral from council, I mean, whoever it's a referral
Could come from Public Works.
Yourself, Public Works, maintenance.
I received something about some trucks going down a street off of Lincoln. We won't name the street, but Pringle has a lot of trucks moving on it. And
Oh, that was Mayor Hewer that brought that up.
And I went out there, and there's some signs that really need to be added there. So
I
to
appreciate
help the
that.
truckers, because they start down the street, then they see the sign, and they can't go backing up.
I appreciate that. We do need to do something
So
about it.
we're going to take care of it. But it was just a light conversation, but it started a process.
Okay.
So what do
then-
we do?
So you follow this MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Use that basically to get, when you go out and evaluate these things, you're using this adopted by Caltrans manual to evaluate it.
Yes, if it's needed. I mean, you get a lot of feel. If we know that there's an intersection like Walnut and Elk Hills, I won't do collecting data every year, but I mean every other year or every month, but I will do it every year to see what's going on. And I've done it now 3 times since I've been in this position. So I won't do it every time that somebody requests it, follow every stringent guideline, because we get a feel for what needs to happen out there. We kind of know the traffic volumes, as we get it. If we're not sure, we think it's getting close, boom, then we jump on the MUTCD and go through those guidelines there, and to get a definitive answer which way we would go on that. So,
You have a question?
Mark, since you brought it up twice, we'll dive into Elk Hills and Walnut. So initially you're saying it's unwarranted, correct?
correct.
But I understand with the implementation of the veranda project by Elliott Homes, we are now going to be putting in stop signs there. What changed it? Could you elaborate on that for us?
Yes, the additional trips that I believe it's called Veranda at River Oaks. There are about 50-plus units that are on the northeast corner of Walnut and Carillion. Once they have those houses in place, the additional trips that those homes bring on will, from pedestrians and also from vehicle peaks during peak periods, are going to push it into a warrant. And that's been studied by 2 different engineering companies, plus myself independently, and that it will meet a warrant once those houses are completely installed. What we're looking at doing, because we know there's going to be a lot of construction activity once they get going, before construction activity will start, we'll have an all-way stop at that intersection installed, because we know there's going to be a lot of trucks in and out and stuff, and we can't really determine how much impact that's going to be until it happens. So we'll just have them put in an all-way stop before they start constructing.
And that's pretty typical with a project. When you do a traffic study, things like this come up,
Yes.
come out of it.
Yes. Vintage Oak and Carillion is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
River Oaks 3C was going to put that into a peak, even though they haven't built a home out there on 3C yet. All their construction activities, I said, let's put this all way in before they start constructing.
You put the all-way in and opened up at DiMaggio, opened up the road at DiMaggio for better flow.
Yes.
Okay. You don't think that project is going to impact the Elk Hills?
No,
I mean, I
not,
know we took out the road bridge, and now it's a pedestrian bridge or a bike bridge. It's not going.
yeah, I think if we had a bridge there at Norbury, I think that's what it's called, it would have had an impact. But all of the studies that were done by consultants and myself looking through it, it wasn't going to, it was going to bring it up. So we layer it. So you do have it coming up. If the River Oaks 3C did not go in place, and it was just Veranda at River Oaks coming online, would not meet a warrant. But we've layered it because we knew the River Oaks 3C was going in line, so that data was used to help layer on the Veranda at River Oaks. So it was a combination of things. So we do look ahead. We're just not looking at the impact of one area. We saw that this construction was going on, so.
And my understanding is that we have a real problem there about having the batteries and the vandalism of that crosswalk, for the lights at that crosswalk. I mean, we get lots of complaints that the lights are out again, we replace them.
We had a couple of back-to-back periods once where we think it was just a tired battery. We replaced it, and then a couple weeks later, we were getting calls again, and somebody had stolen the brand-new battery out of there. So we have tried to increase security on that.
Thank you. Yeah, vandalism and what that costs us. Okay.
Okay, so we got alternatives. We do keep our process that we have? Do we kind of develop a little bit more detail to where we can post it on the Public Works website, and so people can see what our line of thought is through a flow chart or whatever, so they can just get a feel for what we do. But it basically the same thing that we're doing now, but we would have a little bit more information for people to see, and then, or develop a formal policy, at this time. So,
Well, I'm sort of the one that started all this.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I think what started it was, I asked what our process was, and you said, well, you've got one right here. And I'm going, well, that's kind of tribal process. I mean, it should be a little more transparent or visible and just, Post-it notes on somebody's desk. And I looked at other cities, and they actually had a formal policy. And then what you're coming back with now is not a formal policy, but more of a guideline or a process flow. So if the regulations change, we don't have to go through the big process of changing a policy. You just simply plug in the new regulation and you're done. And I kind of like that approach because it doesn't paint us into a corner. So, yeah, you actually came up with a better suggestion. You know, one above Post-it notes.
We always don't think that we're the smartest cat in the room, okay? We do take advice, but it was a good one, and it was nice to look at our stuff, to see our forms that we have, to talk with everybody in there. And so it was good to bring it to a forefront, and then we said, hey, we could do this better.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark. Paige?
So I like the recommendation of a flow chart, just, you know, in case in 20 years when you retire, so whoever takes over for you can follow the chart and, you know.
And to be clear for the public, Mark's closing slide here is, we are recommending against adoption of a formal stop sign policy, but are endorsing that you direct us to go ahead and prepare a more detailed flow chart and make that available to the public as to what the process that we go through is.
I like that even better.
Yeah.
Do I have any public, no more further questions? Public comment? I don't have anything for H3. Any public comment? Okay.
Then I'll move for option, what is it, the middle option of developing a detailed flow chart?
What do we do, Kimberly?
You can take the recommendation to deny a request for the formal policy and direct staff to return with the flow chart that was proposed and the guidelines, I guess, that would follow.
And there's the attorney speaking for you. Thank you. Okay, I recommend that we do not adopt a formal policy. However, I do recommend that we develop a more detailed flow chart to guide us in the future to the extent of engineering review needed for various requests.
I will second it.
My only question in regards to it is that, you know, this was a really specific request for a stop sign policy, and I agree that we need a policy regarding just a stop sign, but I really do think as part of the flow chart and what comes back to us is a really comprehensive flow chart about what happens regarding all issues about signage, because sometimes it is the signs for the trucks, right? We talked about, you know, you and I had the discussion regarding that the truck sign was in a bad place. They're seeing it after they turn, and could we look at that? And so just the fact that we look at all safety signage in the flow chart and how we handle that so that the community knows that if they think there should be a yield sign or a crossing sign or something, that the way it's all handled, or, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's my, but I want to see that what's brought back to us is comprehensive regarding all signage, not just stop sign signage.
Mayor, I would consider that, it sounds like
An amendment.
basically a friendly amendment to Mr. Councilmember Mawson's motion
Yes,
to
it is.
address not just stop signs, but also other roadway signs.
So I make a friendly amendment, is that accepted?
Well, how much more work would it be? Or would it just be part of the flow chart? They asked for a stop sign, no, it needs a yield sign, that kind of thing. Would it?
I was going to include, as you see the last sentence, it says traffic safety requests and how they're reviewed. So that would include.
Okay, then I'll amend
That
it,
was
I'll
part
amend
of
it
it,
from
yeah.
stop sign to traffic safety requests. How's that?
Okay, do I have a
Would
second?
include all signage that concerns safety.
Second, regarding the
Okay.
amendment, okay.
Works for me.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Wilson, second by Councilmember Lamson. Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Mawson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Hewer?
Aye, motion passes 4-0 vote. Next item, Public Safety Committee request for evaluation of 4th Street safety signage. And I do have public comment regarding that, so after the report.
Mr. Clarkson will also make this presentation.
Since I'm still sworn in, we'll continue from here.
Tell the truth.
So, we had several meetings. It came up back in January, right after we completed the 4th Street project out there, the $3 million for sidewalks and street lighting and a few other things out there, bulb outs and crossing areas and such. It started being discussed in the safety committee, and after the first meeting in January, I went out there and I did a review of it. Also, not knowing how conditions were because it was brand new, the site, and I really never paid attention much to it because, well, it changes when you do construction. You know, once you stop construction, things start happening. So I went out there, we did a speed survey, we did some traffic counts, we did some things. A little bit more than I normally would have done, knowing that this road was really lightly used. But we did that. I did that, provided some information to the Traffic Safety Committee. And then there was some more discussions over the next couple of meetings. And we had received comments, the committee received comments indicating everything, that there was not enough streetlights, that you couldn't see anything out there, that people were speeding all over the place, that people, there was sight distance issues, trees and poles and everything were in the way, and cars and everything else. So you know, as those happen, I would go out there. I would leave that meeting and go out there and look at it again and go, okay, what changed? What's happened? And so as we went forward, I did install a couple of signs on either side, some speed limit signs and some yield warnings and stuff. But it ended up being not enough for the committee, so they came here and they recommended to review it again. We already discussed about MUTCD. I didn't want to go through that whole system again, but I used that process, and I used the more stringent process with the MUTCD. Went in there and reviewed and did this and spent the time on it. So back in August, August 9th, I believe, to the 16th or somewhere in there. I might have the dates off right now, but right in the first or so week of August, we did a lot of survey out there. We left our lines up. We did peak studies. We did the queuing studies. We did pedestrian studies, bike studies, a whole bit. We spent a lot of time out there. And as you can see, I'm not going to go through all of that stuff in there, but just to point out a few things, 85 percentile of that area at under 33 miles an hour. That was the same, well, it's actually 10% higher than what we found out back in March before the signs. So after the signs were put in, people moved a little faster. I don't understand that, but that's what happened, you know, because we saw a difference. And I think it could have just been because people became comfortable with it after construction, getting a little farther away from it. But it actually shows that the signs did nothing to deter anything. We still had the standard couple of people a day really going fast in that area, but half the people were under 27 miles an hour, you know, and it appeared there. We had, you know, everything as far as ADA. When you see the peak hour vehicles, 157 sounds like a lot, it really isn't. It's a small amount. When you start getting an MUTCD and where you start looking at doing some additional features, it's usually in the 1,000 range. At the earliest, it's about 600 to 800 ADT before you start looking at stuff, you know, before you start considering more things, along with pedestrians and stuff. But that's about it. So this doesn't even come to the curve yet. You know, it's pretty limited on what we have there. And remember, I'm telling you from an engineering, I'm boring you with engineering detail of what we look at. Pedestrians that we saw, it ranged from 0 to, you know, to up to 12 on D Street, not much on E Street, you know, at the intersection. But what we did notice, and I did, when we did our survey, we did look at mid-block, because I've seen a lot of mid-block movement. People park their cars across the street and they just walk across the street. Almost 70% of all pedestrians don't cross anywhere near that corners. You just have a small amount of people. So they must feel safe doing that. That's what I would take away from that, is they feel safe doing that. And because of their sight distance that they have, I'm hoping they're looking, both sides. I did have a comment. We had a comment at one of the meetings that said the person hid behind a light pole and the cars going by couldn't see them. And I had no idea how that connected with walking across the road unless they carried the light pole with them. I'm not really sure how they would do that. But that's a comment that we had. And you go, okay, I want to make sure the light poles are not in the way, you know, even though I was part of the design unit and stuff.
So when you say that, you like saying that people are parking across the street and just crossing, they're not walking down to the crosswalks They're just crossing
They're not going to the.
where they're parked.
they're-
Like
they're-
if they park at the parking lot, just walk across.
Yeah, they're not using the crosswalks at F or C Street because that's controlled intersections. If somebody wants to use a marked crosswalk, you have those intersections. Without getting boring details, whenever you're looking about trying to do something at an intersection, is there an available crosswalk, like when we're looking at marking a crosswalk, is there an available crosswalk within about 300 plus or minus feet? And there is on both sides. You got from E Street, you got F. From D Street, you got C. It's controlled. So that all falls within the parameter of that's where your crosswalks would be. Even if the ADT went up, the average daily traffic, pedestrians went up, that's where we would still see people or move people to that direction because that's within the plus or minus 300 feet of an intersection. That gives a safe movement for somebody to go across, a safer movement.
So 68% of people are just choosing not to use the crosswalks.
Not to use the corners,
Okay.
D or E Street corners. They're choosing just to go straight across wherever they're going, either going back to their car or coming back to going to the business that they're attending. Now, these pictures are taken as if you're standing on the curb. You're not out in the street. You're standing right on the curb. And so you look at the two top pictures. That's at D Street. And usually, you're told to look towards traffic and then look towards the other way. That's how we teach our kids in kindergarten. They're going to look both ways. So when you look down, it says looking south. You can see all the way down to F Street. And even if cars are parked in any of the parking spaces, you can still see the road as far as you want. In this type of speed and this type of 85 percentile that we see on the driving, you need to see about 250 feet. We're way beyond that looking here. Then I look north. Well, you can see C Street pretty quick, where the stop sign is, and you can see beyond that. And even if cars are parked there, this is not coming off the curb. This is just sitting back of the curb and looking both ways. The bottom one is the same way. It's great to have a car parked right there that you can see all the way down the road. Then I look the other direction. I cross the street, then I look the other direction and say, okay, what's going on that direction? And I look both ways there. And you can see as far as you want to see. If you don't want to see, that's fine. But if you want to see where the vehicles are, you can see them. It's pretty clear there.
Mark, when we got the complaints regarding lighting, had we finished the project and had the lighting in place?
Yes. Apparently they didn't.
Didn't think the lighting was adequate still?
I don't think they went down there and looked at it at night because we have 5 lights. We have the existing one that was already there. I think it was just, the comment came out, there was no lights down there, it's all dark. And I think.
Well, I mean, the lights were some of the last things to go.
The lights were there, yes. Yeah, and they didn't work real well until after about the first week of January
Yeah.
because they had to work with the timing of the sun and they were computerized.
Yeah, there was an issue with the lights.
So by the first meeting, they were reliable, but people may not have thought they were reliable. And then the second meeting, they definitely had been working, all the thing. But just to let you know that the lights are on a different program than the street light that was always there and hasn't been moved. The boom that is on existing poles out there. So we have that light, and then we have an additional 4 lights from different poles at each intersection. And those are the little. You see the stand right on these right here. There's 2 on each one. And right behind me where I'm standing, there's a pole there with 2 lights on it. And right across the street, I didn't show it but right across the street here, there's another pole with 2 lights on it. So you have a lot of lighting down there. Can you read a newspaper? Yes. Can you, if you have an eyesight problem, and can you read, font 6? Probably not. But lighting is there. So we did the same for E Street, or I'm standing on the same. For E Street, the only difference that I had is I noticed, and this is just what happened. On E Street in this corner, we didn't do a bulb out on that. It just wasn't, in the design, it wasn't ever in the Complete Streets Project's design to do a bulb out here. So what I did is, as you can see right here when I'm looking north, I came out I still was not in the drive direction, the drive lane. I just did an imaginary drive lane right down here, and I was still several feet back from it. So if you had a vehicle parked right here, you would still see close to 300 feet down that area. Now, I could still move out. If there was a car parked there, I might want to move out a little bit more, but I wouldn't be in any drive area, any lane at that time. So that's the only exception. The others that you see, I'm standing on the edge of the walkway, and I'm looking left and I'm looking right. And you can see as far as you want. There are no obstructions. And if people park there, whether you're parking here or you're parking down here, there are no obstructions, even with them parking there. So it was, did a lot of detailed review of this because, when the safety committee kept saying, hey, or people kept saying there's an issue, I had to keep going back out there and keep looking because I wanted to make sure. These are the two signs that we put on either side. It did make a difference to people who wanted to drive faster. But, it just kind of lets you know there's pedestrians ahead, there's the signage. But again, as I told the safety committee at that time, the signs wouldn't do anything, and they didn't do anything. Because people look and they see that visual when they come down the street, that it's narrowing up, that there's cars down there that's parking, so they just naturally start slowing down. They're coming off, when you come off of A Street, it's 35 there, and that's where this sign is. Right here is coming off A Street. When you're coming off of F Street's 25, so why would anybody speed up after coming off of F Street? They'd probably go in and hold their 30 miles an hour through there, and typically, so. And that's where we're at there. So we look at a couple other things that I do want to point out, and it's always nice to stay on a picture as you get bored on my talking. I went out and I looked at what are other cities doing? What are they doing in areas where you have light traffic, a little bit of pedestrians in downtown areas. Some cities are marking crosswalks, some aren't. It just depends. We haven't in any of our downtown area. I also went and read information that was put out by the Federal Highway Administration. That is what precedes the MUTCD. They're the ones who develop it, and the MUTCD that we use is from the Federal Highway, and then Caltrans has put a little modifications in it, so that's the one that we use, that Caltrans put a little modification on it. So I look at these studies that actually start directing MUTCD. Every time they do an improvement to it, they'll take these studies and stick parts of the studies into it. And the most recent study that I had has said the same thing for the last 50 years. When you mark an unmarked crosswalk, you've just increased the dangers to that crosswalk. And that is statistically been used, that is verifiable, it's there. So I'm talking about a crosswalk that's not in a controlled intersection. It's an uncontrolled intersection like D and E Street on 4th. As soon as you mark them, you now have increased the dangers to the people using that crosswalk. And there's
I've
many
heard that
reasons.
cities have actually taken crosswalks out because of that.
This study actually told you how to take them out. Why to take them out and how to take them out. You just don't paint over them or let them fade away. They go straight through the entire thing, take them out completely, do an overlay right afterwards. Also, when you compare, and that's for all age groups, under 20, between 20 and 60, 60 and above, all age groups. It's not like you find something different, at different age groups. It's straight across the board. The other thing that you have here is that when you compare an uncontrolled, unmarked pedestrian crossing, or where pedestrians cross, and then you look at a controlled one, like where stop signs or signals are, they're almost identical in safety, almost identical. And you'd think, well, the signal would give you more safety. It really doesn't, because people don't pay attention, whether pedestrians or cars, but it's almost equivalent. If we put lights out there, the safety factor would be the same. And as the MUTCD and many magazine or many articles out there on this by the Federal Highway Administration, if you're going to mark the crosswalk, just don't mark the street, because you've got to do signage ahead of it. And the same thing is, I went out and looked and I go, well, what if we just do signs? Nobody's, there's nothing in MUTCD. There's nothing that anybody out there is just doing signs. It is a combination of both, because you have to try to warn, even though as soon as you mark it, you've made it more dangerous. Now we have to, as engineers, okay, let's put some signs up and let's do a few other things because we know we just made it more dangerous. And so, and there's nothing, you have to look at every intersection's different. This intersection has low ADT. When people tend to use it more, there's less ADT. So you don't have 157 cars going in an hour when you have 20 people using it in an hour. That's not how it works. You have the people who are using it in the hours is when you're down to 40. That's the higher parts of the day. I mean, the later in the night, you know, when things are dark, like between 7 and 8 and 8 and 9, your traffic's almost come down to nothing. And you know, people are coming out of the restaurants or doing their stuff there. And again, we don't look at, or my final note on this is, you guys really enjoy that picture there? I can go to another one, because I'm boring everybody. We don't look at events. Unless an event happens the same time, like you look at the market, every time, every week, you look at the events. If you have an event once a month or once every other week, and you know that you have a safety issue, that event needs to pay for that and put in the safety requirements that we need for that event. And a lot of times we close streets and we do a few other things in there because we work with the event organizers and stuff. But it does not take in effect events.
So what you're saying is the safety is evaluated when the event is planned?
Yeah, yes, when they come forward, yeah.
When you looked at this also, did you look at if there had been accidents?
Yes, there's no
So
history.
you do coordinate with the police and there is no history of accidents?
Yeah, we always ask them and they give us all the reports in the area. And we asked them since the construction of 4th Street, there's been nothing. So we don't, it is part of the warrant. You do look at accidents. I don't want to see any accidents. I hope we're going to meet a warrant.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to evaluate whether there's been a problem with accidents in the area.
Not that I know of. I mean, not that the police know of, not that we know of, or not that was provided to us, so.
Okay. Any more further questions for Mark? We have some public speakers, public comment.
Just, Mark, just a little clarification. You said when you mark it, it's more dangerous. You're just talking about simple signage, not like the blinking ones that are in front of the school. That doesn't make those more dangerous.
Actually, the information coming out saying that if you are going to mark a crosswalk, doing more than signs is recommended. And that means the signals like we have at the pedestrian. The Federal Highway Administration recommends you do more than just signs. Okay. You know, you go ahead and you put up the flashers. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take public comment. Sheila Stapp?
Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Sheila Stapp, and I'm nervous. Anyway, thank you for letting me speak to you about the 4th Street Raceway. I've been there as many as 5 and 6 days a week, not on a regular basis, but I've seen people race down 4th Street. I have been almost hit twice by people coming around E Street on 2 occasions. Because I was backing out, they were coming around. So, I know you can't legislate people's driving abilities, but something needs to be done on 4th Street. People race on 4th Street. They're in a hurry. We've got customers that do walk across the street. Their other choice is to walk down to, the the restaurant and walk across and come down. We need more crosswalks. We need something to identify that people are there. And I fear for the pedestrians in the area. We've got a lot of seniors from the Galt place that walk in that area, and they have their dogs, and they walk across the street to go into the field, and they need protection. And I'm not sure that the people driving fast care about the pedestrians. So I'd give it some more consideration for 4th Street, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Weber?
Good evening, Council. My name's Gail Weber, and I'm here as Laheim's Board President. Laheim is located on 4th Street between D and E Street. When we are open, there are anywhere from 4 to 12 women working in the shop. Most of the women are elderly. We are directly under the Galt Place, which has 80 senior apartments. Next door is Galt Beauty Supply and Salon, Barsetti's, and the Velvet Grill. We all have employees and customers who deal with the speeding traffic on 4th Street on a daily basis. Most of the people visiting any of these businesses, as well as the employees, park on the west side of 4th Street. Many of the seniors walk their dogs across the street several times a day. We all have to dodge speeding cars, and many of us has tales of almost being hit. A traffic study that only looks at Tuesday through Thursday fails to monitor the area's busiest time, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. According to Kirk Smith, the owner of the Velvet Grill, he sees a 2 to 3 increase in customers Friday through Sunday. He averages 12,000 customers a month. The ladies of Laheim are asking for the Galt City Council, whom work for the citizens of Galt, to approve crosswalk signage before someone is hit. Odds are it's only a matter of time before someone is. And when you talk about walking the crosswalks, some of us, they don't even know that there are crosswalks there. So they cross mid-street because they're not even aware that a crosswalk is even available to them because there's no signage or anything. So thank you.
Thank you. Janice Barsetti Gray?
Mayor Huger, council members. I'm Janice Barsetti Gray, owner of Barsetti Vineyards and Tasting Room at 400 4th Street, Suite 150. My business is on the commercial floor, the bottom floor of Galt Place. Speeding and not slowing for pedestrian traffic is an everyday occurrence on my section of 4th Street. There's a stop sign on F Street and a stop on C and nothing in between. The bricked area on E and D Street is supposed to be a crosswalk, yet there's no signage or marking to tell drivers or pedestrians that that's what it is. At night or in wet weather, it is virtually unseen. I've asked people, do you know where the nearest crosswalk is? And they don't know. You can lay out all the bricks you want on the street, but unless you put some signage that it represents a crosswalk, people just think it's a decorative. The new angle parking on both sides is supposed to slow traffic. Not only does it not slow anyone down, but it has created more of a hazard. I can say that I pulled out halfway, watching there's no traffic coming. Just like Sheila said, somebody comes off of E Street and makes that Hollywood roll and just comes. And instead of waiting for me, he'll whip around me and go into the traffic on the other side to keep going. So I've heard so many times that 4th Street does not warrant stop signs. Perhaps before the Velvet Grill and all the commercial business came to 4th, that might have been a valid argument. When you have stop signs on every block from 5th Street to Lincoln Way, from F to A Street, people come to 4th Street because they do not have to make all those stops. On Friday and Saturday evenings during special events such as Wine and Chocolate Weekend, and 4 times a year I have wine club pickup and luncheons, we have large crowds coming and going. Galt Place has 800 apartments. I see the people who walk their dogs trying to cross E Street. They have to wait until a car decides to stop or there's no cars coming. Perhaps it is because the driver does not know there is a crosswalk. The city needs to be more proactive and put signage or white lines on both sides of the bricked area, or both. What I see is a wait-and-see attitude. I hope that no one is injured or killed because we simply needed more data to validate a sign or painted some lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Farmer?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Sean Farmer. I am actually one of the appointed members of the Public Safety Committee. So instead of reading what I wrote, I think I'm just going to skip around here. One thing I noticed by Mr. Clarkson's presentation is even by the pictures, I couldn't even notice where the crosswalks were. And what Janice mentioned is it is hard to see. They look like a decorative thing. There's no markings whatsoever that indicate that there's crosswalks there. So people don't know. People jaywalk a lot. You have 80 apartments in Galt Place. So you have the highest concentration of seniors in anywhere in the downtown area, right in that building. You have businesses like L'Haim, which are ran by seniors. A lot of their customers are seniors. You have 12,000 patrons a month. This is a verified statistic by Kirk. 12,000 people a month go to Velvet Grill. It's it's basically about 400 people a day. And a lot of those are going the evening. They're going the evening after it's dark. They're parking in the new parking lot that we built on the other side, which, as you know, we're getting ready to develop that whole lot, which is now going to be a huge parking lot. So you're even going to have more increased people parking on the west side and crossing. You have a mortgage company. You have Barsetti Vineyards, which she gets 200 to 300 people on a weekend. These are all people who are down there in the evenings when the crosswalks are even less visible. All we're asking for here is some crosswalk signage. I know Mr. Clarkson said that he gave you the whole spiel about how, you know, statistics show you mark it doesn't increase it. But we're not asking for a lot here. We're some simple signage. And I say put a couple simple signs up. The cost is low. He's already verified that. If it doesn't change anything, then at least we can check that box and said, well, at least we did that in the essence of safety. What his study was interesting, he was showing his study was saying 85 percentile. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but your study shows 1,500 cars per day travel north and southbound. That's one day, 1,500 cars. That's actually probably a little low. It's probably more like almost 16, but I went conservative. And out of that, based on your study, which I've had for many months, and I studied it again today, 64% of the cars traveling, 64% are speeding. Now, it could be 27 miles per hour, it could be 45 miles an hour, it could be 50, and you can see the breakdown. I'm sure you guys have all the city, but 64% are exceeding the speed limit. Okay, so it's clear that people are speeding. I have a building down there. I have a business down there. I'm on that street, and I can say without a fact that I'm on that street probably more than any of you sitting up there, I can tell you. I've had a building down there for 10 years. I know it's a problem, speeding. We have business owners that spend most of their time down there that can tell you there's a huge speeding problem. All we're trying to do is make it safe for the seniors that are walking their dog across the street. We're trying to make it safer for the families that are going to Velvet Grill and parking and walking across the unmarked crosswalks, because we can all agree they're not marked. And just trying to make that area safer. That's all we're trying to do here. I mean, a lot of you up there are talking public safety. A lot of you have said in some of your campaign statements that are running, and even the ones that are on, that public safety is important to you. It's important to all of us. It's important to me. But it's hard to hear someone say that public safety is important, and then all they want to do is trying to make up lots of reasons why we cannot do something. All I hear is why we can't do something. Well, the liability of not doing something is greater than the liability of doing something. That's what we heard. You heard it, Tom, in our meetings. We went round and round. I just can't believe that. The problem with excuses is the more you hear them, the less believable they are. And so for me, I think why not just give the citizens, the elderly that are down there and the business owners, show them that we do care about public safety and put in a couple of crosswalk signs. At least they're marked. And if it doesn't change anything, then how worse off are we? So think about that. I want to remind you guys too, as City Council, who you work for. And you don't work for Steve Winkler and you don't work for Mark Clarkson. You work for the people that voted for you. And the people that spoke tonight, those are the people that you work for. And those are the people that you represent. So please consider that when you make this decision. Thanks.
Thank you. Further discussion? Pardon?
Are we done with public comment?
Done with public comment.
I do have a couple of things to bring up. Mark, could you? I have a couple of questions. The first one is, and it was mentioned, this street does have stop signs at each intersection with the lettered streets. Is there a particular reason why it's that way?
I'm not following you on, you mean the side streets?
Side streets.
Yes, D has a stop sign there, E has a stop sign there.
Right. And yet it's not like that on 4th. I'm just trying to grasp why that is.
4th Street, when you can look around town, and I don't know why certain stop signs were put in. There's some stop signs around town that should never have been put in. You know, they've never met anything. They've actually increased hazards because we can see the traffic things that are involved in it. And so, but when you look at just strictly 4th Street, we have stop sign at C, we got a stop sign at F. If somebody came in and said, and I'm just giving you engineering here. I mean, I'm not going to recommend something that engineering does not recommend. That if you came in and you gave these numbers, all of the numbers that everybody has seen, but it's more than 3 days. We did an 11-day period, cover the weekends, and we went out there several times after that to verify that the counts were accurate. That's what you do as engineering. But if we gave those numbers to any engineering group out there, it would be built the same way it is right now. You're not going to see anything else.
And you led up to my second question. If the signs were put up there and say we leave them up there for a year and nothing happens, okay? What would the liability, if any, be if we took them down?
You have to ask the attorney on that. I'm not an attorney.
I thought that might be coming my way. So there are various provisions in the government code. There are some, I think it's actually I was trying to pull it up. There's Government Code Section 830.4, which provides the city protection for actually not putting up signs. The cases, it says that a condition is not a dangerous condition merely because of the failure to provide regulatory traffic control signs, stop signs, yield right-of-way signs, or speed restriction signs as described by the vehicle code. So there is some protection there for actually not, but I think the cases indicate that once the city does put up signs and people rely then on the signage and markings that you've put up, that then there could be potential liability for a dangerous condition of public property. So there's obviously a lot of factors that come into play when you're looking at liability for traffic signals, crosswalks, things of that sort. So there are different factors to consider that once you do put up signage, then you want to be sure that it complies and that you feel that it doesn't constitute a dangerous condition of public property.
Okay. One of the things I do want to point out, as you indicate about the dangers and stuff that the city has, different crosswalks, they've been studied for years, you know, how you sign them. The transverse ones are the old style where you just have 2 lanes. Those are the hardest to see. And if the council were going to do something, I would want to, I would recommend, not as an engineering point of view, but if you want it to be seen, you've got to do the continental ones. And those are the bars that go across, that go the lengthwise of driving. Also, what the Federal Highway Administration proposes is to do more than signs. That signs aren't adequate. You have still increased your risks to the people there. And that if we were going to do anything, because there's a perceived need out there, it should be with flashing lights. And engineering, that's what I would propose.
When you said continental, what are you talking about? What
Those are the bars that you see in front of the schools right now that we've just done out there. It's not the transverse where it's just the parallel lines that go out across the road.
Railroad tracks.
It's the bars.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, not just the line.
Right. Yeah, the bars are what everybody's moving towards. You know, for a lot of years, they've been moving that direction.
Would that increase visibility for people as far as crossing?
You're dealing with, when you're talking about pedestrians, you know, you gotta separate the mix. Pedestrians tend to, I know from all the studies and everything I've read, is that pedestrians focus more on the crosswalk, less on what's happening on either side of it.
Right.
We don't have crosswalks there now. They are just uncontrolled. You know, even though there's stamped concrete out there or stamped pavement that we have out there, it's not considered a crosswalk. It's just an area at the end of a corner. So you kind of look at what pedestrians will do. Right now, only about 30% of the pedestrians are using the corners. And that's, when we counted the corners, we counted both corners, just not the one corner. Anything near the corners, we counted as crossing at the corner, at the intersection. So there were a lot of people not even coming anywhere close to the corners. They were just crossing, but we included them in this. So if we do something there, how do we channel the people to that? So as engineers, we go, how do we channel? Is there a point source of providing the pedestrian? There isn't. They're coming from, as everybody's indicated, from all different types of facilities down there, different stores. They're coming out and they're just moving. So how do we channel them? Well, a lot of cities put up wrought iron and other things to channel them towards.
But if they see them, they're more likely to use them than the current situation. Because a lot of people don't know what the vehicle code says about crossing at a corner, okay? And you're right, a lot of people will go across and they'll do what they consider jaywalking, which we both know isn't the case. But here's something I want to throw at you, because living this particular situation, you said the field of view is on your sheet up there, field of view was open, okay, that you could see all the way down. First-hand knowledge, these lifted trucks that are out and about out there, and trust me, after we talked a couple of days ago, I went out there and started counting. No joke, 2 days, about 12 of them blowing through there at more than 30 miles an hour. Their field of vision is severely limited because they're up here. They don't see this pedestrian down here, especially the closer they get. So I think it's a twofold issue as far as marking it for the pedestrians, but also better enforcement as far as the speeding down there. Just my personal opinion.
I'll talk to the police chief on that.
Well, no, and actually, I think what Mark's saying is true. I think it's an enforcement issue, because I don't think signage changes people's behavior. Enforcement changes people's behavior. This is, the people that are using 4th Street that are speeding, by and large, are people who live in that area. They're residents of our community. They're choosing to put their fellow citizens at risk by not following the speed limit, or they feel comfortable because it is a very, there isn't a lot. But, I do think it's partially an enforcement issue, that if there is a speeding issue down there, even though we've gone down and you did the studies and it doesn't show that there's a big speeding issue, and, we don't want to tie up our law enforcement to an area that's not showing that there is a huge issue, because we need covering our entire community. Mark, I have a problem with, part of the culture of Old Town is that we were supposed to architecturally try to keep it as an Old Town atmosphere, right? I mean, that was part of our plan. I mean, part of our plan in doing the promenade, part of our plan when we built Galt Place. We wanted it to look like it had always been there, that it fits that it's always there. And when you start putting up a lot of signage, I think it distracts from that beautification and what it makes Old Town look like when we start having all of these modern signs across on every street corner and along all the walkways. If we were to mark the crosswalks, because I do understand that, okay, yes, the crosswalks aren't real visible because they just have the brick pattern, and maybe it really was just decorative, but I've always thought it was a crosswalk because we have them on C Street and we have them on Lincoln. And if you put crosswalks, are you saying that it's pretty much recommended then that you have to have signage to go with those crosswalks? Because I just think it starts degrading the look of Old Town.
Yeah, there's no literature out there that says just mark the pavement. There is none. It is all mark it, sign it, light it. That's what to try to keep the risk factor equivalent to, as low as you can keep it.
So if I may, I've bit my lip and tried to remain silent, and I agree with the public speakers that came up, okay, that public safety is number one. But is it what people perceive is needed or what studies have shown time and time again? And public safety is our top priority at Public Works. And it isn't the cost, because the measures that are being talked about, until you get into lighting systems and all of that, are very nominal. It isn't about money. It's about study after study showing that when you mark that crosswalk, that pedestrians take less care in this age of cell phones and people looking down and walking and texting and whatever they're doing. It's even more so. They see those lines, and subliminally they think they're in a crosswalk, I'm safe. And that is why the studies show that they're less safe, is that people are walking out in front of cars at those marked crosswalks at uncontrolled locations. So it isn't that we're trying to resist or disagree with the sentiment that you're hearing from the business owners on there, but we are trying to make sure that we don't reduce the safety of those exact same patrons and senior citizens and children and special event attendees. Is study after study shows that when you mark those, and that's the reason it then says, well, if you're going to do that and reduce the safety of that crosswalk, then you better do some of these other things. And so it sort of becomes if you start getting into that unwarranted area, then you have to do a lot more to overcome the actual safety risks that you're creating. And it's not resistance to the concept. We believe that people should be safe, but what studies show, not that we've done, but that have been done in California and nationally, is that every single study that looked at that at uncontrolled intersections has shown that you're less safe with the marked crosswalks than the unmarked. They're not marked, and that's intentional, because it's safer without them.
And that's what I mentioned earlier.
We're not trying, no, you don't work for me, and we all work for the people, but our job is to keep the people safe, sometimes in spite of themselves. So if that sounds arrogant, I apologize, but we don't take this lightly. It's our profession, and so we certainly will follow council's direction. If council wants more signs, they want more lights, if they want more treatments out there, I think it will affect the character of the neighborhood, and we don't see the engineering value of those things, but if that's what the community feels they need, my concern is what they think they need. Speeding is the real culprit here, or people rolling right turns through a stop sign. None of these measures fix that. They don't improve sight distance. They don't stop the side street that has a stop sign today. If people are rolling those corners and endangering people, none of these measures correct that. Only enforcement will correct that. And it's true on any street, anywhere, in any city. There is a safety risk when you mix pedestrians and cars and when drivers don't follow the rules.
Well, and there haven't been any accidents.
But are you going to correct that with these measures? And studies say no.
Well, that was my point earlier, is that the reason some cities, or a lot of cities, are reviewing all their crosswalks and listing ones to take out is because of that, because they're finding they're less safe. And safety is the big issue here, and that there are some crosswalks they take out for that reason, because people think they're safe because the lines are there, and they're not looking. So, but yes, you're right. I'm hearing two issues here. I'm hearing one is the pedestrians aren't using what's there, okay? In other words, 68% of them are jaywalking. I don't know, they aren't really jaywalking, they're just crossing the middle of the street, okay? And the other issue, and I think the primary issue, is speeding. If there was a way to block off F Street, they wouldn't be able to speed down that, would they?
What my study showed, it was going both directions. The 85 percentile, it was both directions, coming off of C or coming off F. So it would have been nice if the 85 percentile showed one direction was a lot lower, but I think they were within 10% of each other.
Well, if you block off either one, they won't use the street because...
And then you don't get the business.
Yeah, you don't get the business.
Well, and I know there was discussion about speed bumps, and there was discussion, in the report, there was lots of discussions. And like I said, I think that part of what we want is traffic downtown. We want people to be using Old Town. And I'm really concerned about the aesthetics of putting in a bunch of signage and painting up the roads and what that takes away from what we're trying to do down there and how much we tried to do down there. I mean, those streets have been redone. We've had studies. We're trying to attract people to downtown, to Old Town, not to make it so that people go, oh, no, I don't want to go down there. It's too much of a bother.
You make a good point, not just for aesthetics. I mean, I don't,
Well, it's,
I don't look at aesthetics, but what I look at is safety. So when you look at the Old Town, there are 2 other intersections that have a higher ADT by far and higher pedestrian use by far on C Street. And they are in the same conditions of this. They have good sight distance, but they don't have this type of sight distance. They have a lot more cars on it. I mean, by more than 2,000 more cars. It sounds, 1,500 sounds like a lot, but that's a sleepy road. In engineering, that's a real sleepy road.
Do they also have a speeding issue in those
You know, people will say that there's a speeding issue, and then when we look at it, the 85 percentile is generally higher than the speed limit sign. It's just what occurs. When you're coming into Old Town from Lincoln, people tend to slow down, but they're still at a higher rate than what you'd want to see them at 20. The speed limit there is 20, but a lot of people go down to 10, you know. But when you look between 5th and 6th Street, they're just right back at a 30 plus 85 percentile.
Chief, when we put out the monitoring that tells people how fast they're going, the electronic thing shows, does it tend to decrease people's speed?
Sometimes. We get a lot of compliments from the public when we do put them out. I think specifically with this issue, we have sent our officers out there after this was brought up at Public Safety, and we didn't see the volume of speeders that being reported. And so what I ask of any of the speakers that came up, if they can give us a specific time of day, then we can put officers out there to do enforcement. What we can't do is when people complain about speeders, a lot of times we get all hours of the day, day and night. Well, I can't put an officer out there all hours of the day and night. I need more specifics. And so some of the speakers have given me some specific times, and we have been out there during that time. But if anybody else sees any other time, we'd be happy to put officers out there to do a direct enforcement.
So try to do some increased enforcement.
Are there any other traffic calming measures anything we can do to slow traffic down? We haven't already done?
We can install a police officer out there.
Spike strips.
A flip-up police stuff.
Yeah, the serious answer to that question is, of course, there's more you can do. At what cost and at what justification, and where do you stop? We could put in speed bumps at every block. I don't think the businesses would want that. Certainly law enforcement and fire department would not want that. You know, we've done the bulb outs and things. Like I say, the speed surveys that we've done for multiple days and multiple hours show that by and large, the vast majority of people are not speeding significantly above the posted speed limit, which is also the prima facie 25. That is unusual. Most streets have a much higher speed. There will always be a few on any street. Even if we had a stop sign at every corner, there will be some foolish drivers who will go out there and do exhibition of speed things or other you know, just very poor driving habits. And the things you install, short of speed bumps, speed tables, speed humps, speed undulations, which are very deleterious to the type of atmosphere I think we want downtown. You know, there will be drivers that will drive in excess and sometimes well in excess of the speed limit. And, you know, how far do you go to try to stop that? Typically, the lengths you go to are not necessarily things that are helpful for public safety or for the ambiance of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I was just thinking if it's not a throughfare, like there's a parking lot or something where you just can't get from A to B, so to speak, or I guess A to F, people wouldn't use it as a throughfare. You know, That's why they use it, because they have stop signs on the other streets.
So Mark, have you noticed any extra accidents from those stop signs on Fifth Street? Have there been any?
No, I haven't pulled anything recently from that. I mean, when we pulled the area back in August, and there was nothing there. And, well, I guess we did a big review of that area back when we did the grant application, because we were looking for safety issues, and nothing rose to the occasion that the SACOG would look as a safety need in that entire area between Lincoln and 3rd Street.
Any further discussion? Oh, what do you want to do? Do you have a motion? I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to deny further safety signage or markings on 4th Street at this time, and with that I would like staff to continue to monitor it and for us to look at increased enforcement in the area. If there are specific times of day that are an issue, if it's evenings, if it's Friday evenings, that we need to be monitoring the area, then that we need to look at those times in which there is more business downtown, that we need to look at the enforcement issue. That's my motion. Do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Any other comments?
Have we looked at every possible aspect of, as far as addressing this, I guess is the best way to put it? I mean, you're telling me that signage and lines on the ground aren't going to cut it because it's all, as Steve said, it's going to make people get the warm fuzzies and end up getting run over faster. That's pretty much how it came across to me.
Statistically, you're less safe with a marked crosswalk.
The area at this time has such a low ADT and pedestrian usage. I know people will say, oh, they have so many thousands a month and stuff. We have to look at peak hours. Peak hours are very limited. What tends to happen right now, and this is on Friday night and Saturday night, when, it excludes events. But when you have the normal things that are going on down there, that you have about, when you add it all up, you have about 42 to 44 minutes in that entire hour to walk across that street, because the traffic is so small. So, you might have to wait your 8 or 16 seconds till a car goes by or 2 cars goes by. But when you start timing the cues of how much time you have to get across the street, it's almost 45 minutes of every hour during the peak periods. And that's what it shows us. I mean, somebody can come up here and say, no, it isn't. We got so many people going there. We counted. We've done it. If I go out there and count it again tomorrow, it'll be the same. It just doesn't change that much. So can we do something to increase the time allotted for people to cross? It's an incredible amount of time right now during an hour period.
I understand, but all it takes is one incident where a child lets go of mom or dad and darts out in front of a vehicle that's at a high rate of speed, or like I said, one of our wonderful raised trucks. And then I wouldn't want that on my conscience.
And that's what's tough, because there are hundreds of intersections in this city that have more ADT and more pedestrian usage than this area. So to sit there at night, even, because you've got high school activities going on at night, you've got stuff going around the businesses in this area. They have more stuff going on down here. And so even as we look at everything, we've got intersections all over. As an accident, I've been involved in accident investigations and looking at them. It's horrible. You go, man, would have been nice to have a barrier right here on a street that only has 1,000 cars a day. You don't put barriers, It's just, it's something you don't want to think about, but it's something that's out in the forefront. That's why we've spent the time that we had. I've had different engineers go out there. I have read more material everywhere. Is there something else out there? Is there a magic, silver bullet out there to help it? If we want to mark the intersection, we need to light it. We just can't to keep the same safety. It won't improve the safety. It won't reduce people's speeds, as Mr. Winkler had indicated. It's not going to do the traffic calming.
And it won't make people use the crosswalk.
It won't, yes.
They'll still cross.
Yeah, because why would you walk?
Why would you?
Why would you walk, 100 feet to it when your car's just
And there's no
24 feet
cars.
away?
Well, we're addressing the pedestrian issue as far as crossing. And I think we know the big problem down there is speeding. And don't take this the wrong way, Steve. I believe what you say. But talking with firemen, the number one thing they say is, we don't have a problem with undulations. I mean, those trucks are designed to clear those without any problem. So what is the possibility of putting one, say, at the north side of E Street and the south end of D Street? It would give them pause.
We would look at, if you indicated that you want to do something structural down there, like that, then we would do a study. We would look at where would you want to put them, because a lot of times people want to race from them to the next one. So you got to look at where the pedestrians are. Is there a way to make the pedestrians come down to a posted crosswalk, in that area? So what features do we have to do to make them to come that direction and not take a shortcut? And if we can't do that, where do we put the undulations? How high do we need them because of the speeds? There's so many things that you look at. There's some cities that are putting undulations right where the crosswalk is. So cars do slow down as where the crosswalk is. They have to slow down before they go over the crosswalk. And so there's a lot of neat things out there. It's not in MUTCD, but it's in publications out there of different cities and different agencies doing it. And so we could look at that. We absolutely could look at that. And from the point of view of helping to reduce speeds. When you ask right now, is there a need to decrease 85 percentile down to 25? Engineering, I don't see it, but the customers may see it. If everybody wants the ambience to be at 25, we can make the road a 25-mile-an-hour road. That's what engineers are good at, slowing everybody down. If we've got the money to do it, but we would do a study on that.
I would be open to that idea. I don't know where council stands on it, but at least it would give us another avenue to look into.
I think reducing, if you made it a 25-mile-an-hour area, that's where you want the cars to not go above that. We would need direction. What we would do is we'd do a draft plan, then we'd come back and ask for some directions on it, and then go back and decide what we're gonna, what speeds we think we can attain or decrease it down to. And it could help with, it definitely will help with speeding.
Well, then,
You mean putting in speed bumps?
Putting in something. It could be
Traffic
all
calming.
about traffic calming features.
Traffic
We
calming.
would have to look at what the traffic calming features are to make sure people aren't going to, go from this bump to the other bump and still hit 50 miles an hour, because now they've lost time. You got to look at a bunch of
Well,
things.
yeah, because that's what I see people do with speed bumps,
Yeah.
and then all the damage it causes cars. It might not hurt fire, but it really does mess up with your car if you're driving over those speed bumps every day.
If you look at where vehicles go, or safety vehicles go, if they were going to head over to one side of the town or the other, they're taking A Street, they're taking C Street, they're taking F. They're not going to cut through
or third.
things unless there's something going on right in that area. And is it going to slow them down? Yeah, 3 or 4 seconds, But we have to work with the fire department, we have to work with the PD and the safety individuals as we're developing this. If we're going to make it a 25 speed. As we indicated, money is not what we're looking at when we come with the study. But you want to reduce it to 25, it's probably along the whole length. A lot of people are just looking between C and F. We have a high use right down there on B Street. So do we ignore B Street? Or do we take the whole 4th Street area in? And if you just take half of it, that's fine. If you want to look at all of it, that's part of it too. But you are looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to do anything down there structurally. It's just depends on what we select.
Well, it's so great over the last particularly probably the last 4 to 6 years, to see, all the improvements we've made to Old Town, what it's looking like, the promenade being, but even taking away the railroad, the quiet zone. Someday we'll do something about that ugly fence. But, that it's really important that we maintain the aesthetics to me, because we did this for a reason. The councils approved this for a reason, so that we would have a verified Old Town that people could come down and enjoy. And I get concerned that that people's perception, because obviously the studies don't bear out the perception that we don't have a problem. And yes, public safety is important to all of us. We don't want to see anybody injured. But by and large, if people are crossing in the middle of the street, they're doing it because they feel safe doing it. Because I know I wouldn't cross in the middle of the street in some of the streets here in town, Carillion being one. I'd sure go ahead to a crosswalk. Cars are going much faster on Carillion at 45 miles an hour. It's a much scarier street to pass than 4th Street, to cross over than 4th Street.
You think they're going that slow?
Yeah. And when one of the speakers talked about racing. I assume it's not meaning that people are actually racing. It just means I hope that it means people were just going fast. But it's still really important to me that we maintain the aesthetics of Old Town. I don't want to have it become full of a bunch of signs, full of a bunch of markings, and then take away from what we're trying to do down there and what was trying to happen down there. I think that the businesses are filling up, the vacant buildings are filling up, there's people interested in moving down there, there's people going down there to eat, there's people going down to the businesses, and you start making it less customer friendly, people will stop going, because they'll go somewhere else.
I would like to make a motion.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to move that we send this back to staff with the idea of coming up with some idea to do traffic calming, whether it be undulations. Again, that's in your purview, Mark, but something to that effect.
To calm it to what?
To calm speeding, which seems to be the primary issue we have down there right now.
I tend to agree with that. The issues, from what I'm hearing, is speeding. Not all the time. But if we want the Old Town to feel like an Old Town, then it ought to feel like a kind of what I'm getting is a slower paced Old Town, okay? I want to keep that in mind when you go through the traffic calming, because there may be other methods of doing it rather than using speed bumps or something like that. I'm thinking planters in the middle of the street or something, whatever. Traffic calming is a whole toolbox full of things. And I don't know if we've looked at all that, have we?
They will if you
The
second.
current speed limit is
No, but
25.
I don't
25,
believe
right?
we have.
25.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is your recommendation that we bring it down lower than 25?
No, traffic calming as in getting vehicles to come down to 25, which is obviously not the case right now.
Well, actually, the studies show maybe 27.
My feet would say otherwise.
Yeah. But if we haven't looked at some of those techniques, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to look at them and see what's in the toolbox.
Yeah, we have not looked at traffic calming at all. We were just looking at what the existing site conditions.
So I would ask
Okay,
one
is that a
question on that,
second?
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Staff, what kind of staff time is that going to take? And what kind of dollars are you going to need to do something like that, study-wise?
Oh.
And where does that funding come from?
How big of an effort are we asking for here?
You're getting in steps in here, Mark.
Say it's going to need a consultant?
In general.
This isn't a money issue. Let me give you the checkbook. Just sign it. I would think that we're in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. That's where we're at, because we will have to have, I'm not a specialist in traffic calming, and we would have to have somebody come in, look over our shoulders, or develop a staff report, do the stuff do a report. We can do a lot of the field stuff, the data gathering and such, but we'd be in the $20,000 to $30,000 range.
And where's that funding come from? Is that is that,
I don't carry the purse.
is that out of the pot of potholes and?
We'd accept it from the general fund, but
I know that.
typically that would be competing for the roadway funding we talked about earlier in the
Yeah.
meeting.
So is that funding source, can that come out of Measure A, SB1?
I would have to look at the conditions to make sure that we can do a planning out of those funds.
The bottom line is we sort of pour all three pots of money in, and if we have an eligibility issue, we'll use our local streets and roads,
Okay.
standard gas tax,
Okay, so that would take away from,
other things with Measure A.
yeah, okay.
So it would
So-
basically need to come back to us as a budget item.
So we would need to come back as, budget item would be probably a project that we'd have to put in the CIP or, possibly depending on
Well,
the cost.
clearly the public sentiment is we don't want to wait forever for a decision. I would recommend that we do some, we have some on-call traffic consultants. Go to a couple of our on-calls, get a proposal to do a study of 4th Street, and then we bring back a budget recommendation. We do not have that type of money in the engineering budget currently in professional services, so we're going to have to move or appropriate funds. We do have available fund balance, but that's the money we need to fix our roads with as well.
I guess as we move forward, the council needs to be aware of what kind of staff time, what kind of cost it's going to be, and it's kind of a priority. We heard earlier, this evening about our PCI and, the dollars, 1.12 million gap that we have, and kind of where are those priorities that we need to, spend funding.
Well, the study is that, we can come up with a study, a plan of issue, but that's not a design and that's not the infrastructure. And so whatever we come up with the planning, it's either going to sit there and just collect dust, or we're going to move forward. And moving forward is, if we do any kind of structural stuff out there, I would be looking at, we're probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars out there. There's just no doubt of what we would be doing.
I'll make sure the council and the public know which, where we're going here with the discussion. Thank you.
State your motion again. Let's see if we get a second.
You can do that all over again. I'd like to send us back to staff to have them do a plan, give it, for lack of a better way, as far as traffic calming and possible undulations, whatever would reduce the speeding on that stretch of road.
Do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
So since this was the safety committee recommendation, can we just go back to recommending the signage, and then it can, if it's a no from the council, we can drop that? Can I make a motion for the signage?
You're making a motion for what signage?
Just crosswalk warning signs.
Warning the pedestrians where the crosswalks are, or
Warning the pedestrians,
warning the
yeah, Tom.
drivers where the crosswalks are? Because I'm hearing mostly it's the pedestrians that need to know.
Yeah, we were thinking about the blue, on the blue. That's what the safety committee recommended, so I was going back to what they were actually recommending to council.
I have a motion to accept to put crossing signs in? Is that what I'm understanding?
Crossing warning signs
Crossing warning signs at the corner of 4th Street?
at the crosswalk locations. That's
There are
what
no
they were thinking.
There are no crosswalks. That's the issue. At the corners, or
So
what?
you're saying at the corners?
At the corners.
So signage at the corners for crosswalk warning. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
Want me to try one?
Sure.
Okay.
Everybody else has.
All right. I'm sure the public would like us to move on this, but it sounds to me, can you bring something back so we have some kind of an idea as far as the budget hit and what it would take to do the traffic calming study at the next council meeting? Is that doable?
So you have a motion for staff to bring back a report regarding what it would cost to do?
The traffic,
To do
yeah, the
it.
traffic calming
Traffic.
study, so we have some kind of idea of what kind of a budget hit we're talking about.
You mean just the study or the solution?
how much it's going to cost us to do the study.
Okay.
Because we're not going to get a study done in 2 weeks. But I mean, the way I'm looking at it is, if we're going to if we have a problem here, we ought to take a look at it and solve it from top to bottom, not just
Well, I think,
put signs up and actually we may end up getting people hurt by doing that.
I think a
We don't know.
two-week timeline is a fairly quick timeline.
It
We
is.
could probably get you November 6th council meeting, next meeting. Staff reports are due Friday, so that's going to be tough.
Have that meeting's already in the works.
Yeah, that's my motion. If we can, okay, November 6th.
We have a motion to bring back in 2 weeks the next council meeting,
November 6th.
November 6th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Motion to bring back on November 6th, a report from staff regarding the cost of doing a traffic calming study
Yep.
recommendation.
Yep.
For
Yeah, I just soon see it done from A to Z and do it right. That's,
So we're talking about just 4th Street.
yeah.
Okay. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Molson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Hewer?
Aye, motion passes 4-0 vote. Award of bid and approval of deductive change order and budget appropriation for the 4th Street parking lot and open space improvement project.
Madam Mayor and council members, this is a continuation of the next recommended phase for our 4th Street parking lot and open space improvements in the railroad lease area, as it's known. And Mr. Trung Tring will make a brief presentation on the bids received and our recommendations.
Madam Mayor, member of the council, this is the award packet for the 4th Street parking lot and open space project. Staff is recommending that council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Sierra National Construction Incorporated in the amount of $530,796. Execute a deductive change order number 1 in the amount of $249,060.50 for a remaining contract value of $281,735.50. Authorize a project contingency of 10%. Authorize the Public Works Director to accept the project and issue a notice of completion upon satisfactory completion of the work, and increase the appropriation in amount of $163,120 to be offset by additional CDBG funding. This project is funded by SHRA, the block grant, and there was a shortfall, and we've been communicating with SHRA, and they've verbally communicated to us that they would provide the additional money to us. And so upon completion of this, approval of this project to council, we would communicate with, we would go through an amendment process, which with the current agreement that we have, and secure that funding for this project. So that's what that bullet is about. So just a rough timeline of how we got to this point. Staff met with the Historical Preservation Committee and the Planning Commission prior to the May 2018 City Council meeting. We had 3 options laid out, option 1, 2, and 3, and we had the selection as option 1. Staff worked with the designer, finish out the plans and specifications, and then we bid the project in early August. Opened the bid in beginning of September 2018. The projects came in a lot higher than we expected, and so we discussed options, and we worked with the low bid contractor to come down on the scope and the budget to make the funding work. We also discussed with the SHRA about the additional funding, as I mentioned earlier. And that last bullet, if everything goes through tonight and it's approved, and we expect to have this project completed by the end of this year per the grant requirement. So this was brought in May to City Council. This was option 1. This is what we selected. So with the reduced project scope, we would essentially just install the driveway at East Street. We would install just the parking that fronts the sidewalk side, the street side parking, have perpendicular parking, and essentially install the pavement to attach to the existing pavement on D Street. We've cut out essentially all of the electrical work, all the lighting, and all the landscaping. We will be installing drainage facilities here to take care of some of the drainage problems out in this area. There'll be a DI here and a DI on the other side to take care of the drainage problems. And with that, these are the same recommendations that I read out earlier, and I would answer any questions if you have any.
Questions?
This is going to be completed by December?
Correct.
Hope it doesn't rain.
Yes, that's we're up against the timeline for sure.
And my second question is, this won't complete the project, this will just complete this portion of the funding and grants that we have.
That's correct. So there's a master plan, obviously, that was approved for this project, and we're doing as much as we can with the budget that we have. The idea is that in additional funds in the future, we'll complete out the master plan.
Well, that's my question. Have we got any idea what the future will be, or nothing at this time? There's nothing out there, no grant we've applied for, just nothing now. Okay.
Did I understand you that that there would be no lighting of this parking lot?
Correct. There's existing lighting right there.
Okay.
So
There'll be no additional lighting
there'll
currently?
be additional lighting, correct.
Well, there'll be lighting on the sidewalk already, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the previous project installed the lighting that has lit up the promenade,
Right.
and it continues down the sidewalk. The previous phase of the starter parking lot doesn't have any lights in it either. This would be more of the same.
And there's no plan to at least put in the conduit? I mean, you don't have to complete the wiring or anything else, but if you're gonna dig up all that ground, you got,
Right. We are planning to put in sleeves for the
Okay.
electrical and irrigation.
yeah, because you don't wanna go back and have to dig it up again.
We stub out wherever we're doing hardscapes.
Okay, good.
So with the new condensed version, you will not be widening the parking lot between C and D?
That's correct, Councilmember Page. So essentially, I think this is what you're saying. So originally, our design was a widened parking where both sides be parking, and this one would just, you'll see this limit of work here, and essentially, we're cutting the parking area on the east side, the west side, and we'll only have perpendicular parking on the sidewalk side.
Okay.
Which already has the lights.
Correct.
Yeah, and perhaps, maybe if I'm interpreting what I think the question was,
Yeah.
is the next block north, where the first parking lot went.
Right.
That gravelled area will remain an overflow area.
Okay.
The only real improvements there for this phase would be that we would take care of the seasonal lake that is in the overflow area with the drainage inlet at that point.
Okay, thank you. Until the next.
And this went before the Historical Preservation Committee?
It did, yes.
Did? Yes. Judge also suggests the traffic calming go before them, too. Anyway, okay. Speaker sheet? Any further questions? Okay, we have one speaker.
I didn't phrase it really well
Mr.
because I
Van-
was quick.
Yeah, I'm not really.
That's okay. My name's Jay Vandenberg. I was just listening, thank you for letting me speak or whatever, but it seems to me that the public wants they want the stop signs there to slow down traffic, right? And you're about to put a parking lot in the same area. If you put four-way stops at the entrance and exits of the parking lot, you will justify why the stop signs are there and slow the traffic down at the same time, satisfying multiple problems at once, without lighting or any other things. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions for staff?
Well,
Further
I'm
discussion?
sure as you look at this project, you'll look at the traffic calming aspects of it.
I understand it, I'm just.
No, I'm talking, yeah.
That's
No,
a
my
good
comments
idea.
directed towards staff, that they'll be looking at how this will help with the traffic calming, or if there's some little change order we can do, add a bulb out or something.
Well, so
I'm no
the
expert.
specific work to get this done, we've got to
By
tell the
December,
contractor
yes.
to proceed with the
Absolutely.
scope that they've proposed with the cost reductions. What I would turn it around is, and we will take these new improvements with any future study we do into account and look to address those issues.
Well
If
said.
we don't get this project done, we lose this money. correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this parking lot is not to attract more cars. The cars, what are there are there. This is to use the remainder of the CDBG that's available to us in this area because of a low-income area that it was applied to about 5-6 years ago. We have to use it. This was the best area, this was the best and fastest way to use it. Is this additional 18 or 20 spaces going to bring 18 or 20 more cars? No, because it's not doing anything for businesses. It does provide a all-weather surface. So when the people do overflow, they don't have to go into the overflow where the rock is. They can come into the pavement. And we will, when you look at any type of study of a street, you look at what may happen in the next 5 years as far as development. So you don't make the study obsolete the first minute you put it out on the street. You kind of predict, and we would work with planning. If we went ahead with a study, we'd be working with planning and others to figure out what's kind of may happen in that area.
Yeah, said another way, during strategic planning, parking downtown has been identified as a concern, and we previously had direction to improve the open space with parking as a priority. So this, as Mark said, doesn't create new traffic. This is going to primarily benefit special events because the parking lots that are there are seldom full during normal business. It's going to be the special events where this is going to have an added benefit.
Well, I thought it was really interesting to be down there for Farm to Fork, and there was 400 people in attendance at Farm to Fork. There was people at Brewster's, there was people at Barsetti's, and parking was adequate, but people were parking in the overflow area, that this would be hardscaping so that in rain weather and all of that, we wouldn't have that issue. So, but I mean, there was a lot of people down there that night, and there wasn't any difficulty finding parking. But we were using the overflow. Okay, any further discussion? Any further comments? Do we have a motion?
Well, are we going to take these 5 items as
So
one big chunk or one at a time?
One big
You can do
altogether,
them in
so-
one chunk.
So moved?
All right.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lamson.
I'll
I
second.
have a second. I have a second by Councilmember Molson. Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Mawson?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson?
Aye.
Mayor Hewer?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0 vote, and we'll hope for no rain.
Yes.
Well,
Oh, we need rain.
okay, communication. I just have one item. Received an invitation from the Consumnes Fire Department and Fire Chief Michael McLaughlin for a badge pinning ceremony tomorrow night at 6:30. And due to the candidates forum page, hold on, because it's kind of directed at you. If you can just direct, somebody needs to attend this. I know the 3 of us are attending the candidates forum. Would you be possible to attend the 6:30 pinning here at City Hall for Dan Quagle, Battalion Chief, and Dustin Romero, Engineer, are getting pinned? It's here
Yeah,
at
right here.
6:30. Here at City Hall, if you'll represent me. I usually attend these things, but I can't. Okay, thank you. City Clerk's report?
Nothing tonight.
Comments by staff? Chris, boy, you've been quiet.
Nice. A couple quick items, a couple projects I know we all been tracking. South Sacramento Habitat Conservation Plan, as you know, will come back to you next meeting, finally. And the industrial annexation, looks like we're going to get on the LAFCO board in December. So I'll keep you updated on it as it progresses.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Winkler?
I think you've heard quite enough from Public Works, so I'll pass.
Mr. Clarkson? Cora? Okay.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Armando?
I do have a couple of things. I wanted to let you know that we're currently taking registrations for youth basketball. We take them through October 15th without a late fee. through October 22nd with the late fee. Special events, we have the Liberty Ranch High School Homecoming Parade this Friday, and I was notified by the chamber that food truck event will be suspended until March. They still will be here for lighting of the night, but it will not be on 4th Street through March. And I think the check for the lights dropped out of the book when it was handed to me, so.
Well, we'll ask, huh? Chief?
Just a couple of things. So our National Night Out barbecue for all of the volunteers was a huge success. We did that on September 27th. I want to give a special thanks to TJ Gadati and our CAPS volunteer, Terry Esparza, because the two of them put all the food together, cut all the tomatoes, all the onions, everything else, and we're prepared for everybody. So it was a great event. Unfortunately, we lost Sacramento County Deputy Stasiuk in the line of duty in Rancho Cordova, and so his funeral is on September 29th, this past Saturday, and so we had myself and 8 members of the department were there, and including Lieutenant Small in the back. So I know there's a lot of things going on in Galt that day, but we wanted to make sure we paid our respects to Sacramento County. I also did a speaking engagement at that night on the 29th for the New Hope Church. It's the carnivore night. Men from all the local churches got together, and I was the guest speaker for that night. Tomorrow is our Coffee with a Cop at Rayleigh's. It's tomorrow from 8 to 10 in the morning. It is National Coffee with a Cop Day, so we're celebrating there. I have some really amazing news. Officer Little and Canine Kane certified today.
Oh.
So their first official day together on the street will be this Saturday. So that's great news. And if you haven't noticed, I'm wearing pink patches and a pink T-shirt. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and for the second year in a row, Galt Police Department is participating in the Pink Patch Project. It is a national project for different law enforcement agencies. Some fire are joining in, Department of Corrections are joining in, there's a whole bunch of other agencies joining in. This is our second year in a row, so it's a voluntary program for all of our folks, but you'll see some of us with pink patches, some with just pink T-shirts, whatever way they feel that they want to show respect and recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So
how do people buy patches?
So
Part of
our,
it to
the
donate.
patches that we have are for sale at the lobby of the police department. I think it's important to say that the patches that are being sold were purchased by both of our unions within our department. They purchased their own set of patches, and they're the ones that are selling them. And all the money that is raised for the sale of those patches goes to breast cancer survivors. Unfortunately, right now, I wish that I can remember the name of that, but I'm having a brain freeze right now. But essentially, it's a operation that, free of charge to cancer survivors, they can go in and get things to help them through the process, whether it be wigs, scarves, all those kind of things. So that's where all the money is being donated to. Those are the two unions that are in our department that are doing that. Phenomenal job. The patches are actually for sale year-round. They can get them at the front lobby of the police department. One of the representatives from the dispatcher union, she's going to be there tomorrow at a Coffee with a Cop event also.
Thank you.
We'll be sure to introduce Officer Kane at a future council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a speech ready.
Kimberly?
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Jean? Okay. Comments by council member and future agenda items? Tom?
I have nothing.
Mark? Paige? Nope. I'd like to bring back my, my discretionary funds to the next meeting for use by, to allocate them to the Senior Commission on Aging for the Senior Resource Center. So if we'll bring that back as an agenda item at the next meeting. Anybody else? That's it? Okay. Meeting adjourned.